Broadcasting from their world headquarters in Texas, it's the Arcade Repair Tips Live Show. The show that discusses arcade repair, restoration, news, and more. Now, here are your hosts, Tim and Jonathan.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 84 of the Arcade Repair Tips Live Show for February 2024. My name is Jonathan Leung. I'm the producer, director, and editor here at the Arcade Repair Tips video series. And joining me today as always is Mr. Arcade Repair Tips himself, Tim Peterson. Tim, how you doing today?
Good. As you know, I got here a little early today. Some days it seemed like I'm barely squeaking in here, but
you actually got here before I did.
Yeah, so I had we had a little extra time to just visit a little bit. So thankful for that. The weather's perfect here.
Yep.
Right now it's 70 degrees and partly sunny. It was kind of a beautiful day. So pretty good mood, ready to have a good live show tonight.
Absolutely. Now, Tim, I'm going to put on my meteorologist hat here real quick and tell you that there's a low-pressure front coming in from the north that's going to cool us down here in about a week or so. So
of course,
enjoy the nice weather while we have it, for sure.
Right.
It's still wintertime. It's Texas, but
Yeah.
it's still winter.
Well, in Texas, we get all 4 seasons just usually in 1 week.
Exactly.
And so, we just had snow a couple weeks ago and ice. So glad that that's moved on. But we're thankful that you're here, even if you are in a blizzard or snow or some tropical place. I know we got one guy tonight from Australia.
Yep.
So I bet it's a little warmer there.
Absolutely.
So anyway, thankful that you're here tonight.
And we do want to remind you that if you want to interact with us during the show, you can do that in the live chat if you're watching live tonight. We will be picking that up. And Tim, we have quite a bit of people there already, so I can go through. Now, before we even started the show, Rob gave us kind of an update. And if you remember from the last show, Rob had a Unico 19-inch I think he was having some problems with.
Yeah.
And so we had given him some recommendations, but he came back and said, I unfortunately have to work for the show, so he's going to miss tonight's show. But he wanted to update us and say that the new board didn't work, so they sent him a whole new one, and now he's up and running. So awesome. Unico apparently sent him a whole new unit, which is great. So, Tim, the Unico units seem to have mixed reviews so far, but it does sound like their support is decent enough at least to get you a replacement if you need one. So hopefully you guys are having good experiences with your Unicos. If not, maybe you need to contact support and see if you can get that taken care of. But Tim, I am excited because their 26-inch specifically looks like a really great replacement for 25-inch CRT monitors. So.
And we've mentioned it. And thank you, Rob, if you're still here or you watching this later, for updating us. I always like to hear updates.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it's nice to know what the fix was. We're giving our best guess most times, or the educated guess we try. But, there's 1,000 things sometimes that something could be. So when he comes back and says, and to hear that their customer support is pretty good and they took care of him is a plus too.
Yeah, and they're still trying to get their feet underneath them, I think, with these monitors. Obviously, they have some experience doing some of the, pre-built arcade cabinets. I think the Neo Geo is attributed to them, Tim, in particular. But they may still be getting their feet wet as far as some of the support things. So we're going to hope that they get all that ironed out very soon and get, everything to where it's shipping properly and working when it arrives. So... Tim, we have Angelina here tonight in the live chat. We have Millstar Electronics. We have the real Hammer Billy Lee, and he says it's the first Thursday of the month. And you know what that means, Tim? Arcade Repair Tips live show. Absolutely. Yeah. Das Ham is here. We've got YouTube Punk here in the live chat. We've got Joe Flores is here. He says a great year, 1984. Yeah. So Tim, how long ago was that?
That's been a couple years.
Maybe 4 decades ago.
I know somebody was saying in 6 years, the 80s will be 50 years ago.
That's right.
That sounds not true, but 1984 was my favorite year.
I will
say that much.
And then we also have Alan here as well, and he says hello. So Tim, we have a lot of people in the live chat. And we want to thank you guys for watching with us tonight. Hopefully I think we have a good show for you. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And again, if you do have anything to interact with us in the live chat with, please let us know. Phaser58 also says howdy, Tim.
Hello, everybody. Thank y'all for being so already. We got a lot of chatter going on in there. Thank you for shouting out. Sometimes I love it when people tell where they're from, too, because it's always neat to see all the different parts of the world that we get viewers from. So thank y'all for being here.
So, Tim, before we get started into all of the outline stuff and questions and things, you brought a stack of stuff with you today. I'm going to pull it out. Yeah, so... Tim, now I've given Tim arcade shirts for
if you've been a fan of the show, you know that on my birthday, Christmas, just several times throughout the year, Jonathan is really good about giving me T-shirts. If you're also a longtime fan of the show, you will also, if you go back to the first episode, you'll notice that I am slightly bigger than I used to be,
Yeah.
which happens
Happens
I
to all of
think,
us, Tim.
with age. And I think the job that I do now, I'm not so much on my feet. I'm working on it. But at the same time, there were just a lot of T-shirts that I could no longer wear. Some of them have been worn maybe once. A lot of them we wore during the live shows. So I just kind of cleaned out the closet and come up with a stack of arcade. They all have some kind of arcade theme. I think there's a Mr. Gaddy shirt. You might remember when I worked there. Some retro type looking shirts,
right.
New stuff.
So what we're going to do is we are going to give these away for free, but you have to pay for shipping if you want one. And if you're interested, so they're all extra large to 2XL.
Right.
So if you are extra large to 2XL, if you will send an email to questions@arcaderepairtips.com, and if you will just say you want a shirt and how many and what size. So, because I will ship more than one to somebody, not more than probably 3 though. So, but if you're interested, questions@arcaderepairtips.com, say you want one of Tim's shirts, how many you want, what size you want, and I'll get you a shipping quote, and we will ship these to you. The shirt is free. The shipping you'll have to pay for.
Yeah.
So, but they are free shirts technically. But we've thought it'd be nice to give them away. Most of these are in very good condition. Some of them were worn on the show maybe once or twice.
Yes, so. Most very slightly used game worn jerseys is what they are. You know,
are you gonna sign them on request?
Yeah,
is that
on request.
on request.
I will say that I might have saw Patrick Mahomes play while I was wearing a couple of those jerseys. But he didn't wear any of them. But anyway, we just thought, I could donate them to Goodwill, but maybe some of you guys might appreciate. We get a lot of comments, Jonathan, about our shirts that we wear, and I still have plenty more. So no worries. Thank you, Jonathan, for keeping me stocked up all these years.
You got a birthday coming up too.
Just having to be realistic that it may be a time to do a little closet cleaning out, and thought some of you could, if you wear.
Are they washed? Everybody's asking.
Oh, yes.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure you washed them.
They're definitely washed. I really don't. I don't even know if any of them have any holes or anything. Very gently worn. Most of them I just wore. I don't wear out. I just wear during the live show and then put them up. And then you have so many that you guys go back and watch the live shows. It's probably not even common that I wear the same shirt. So a lot of them have only been worn a few times. So anyway, if you're interested, and shipping has gotten so high, we just can't pay for the shipping. But if you'll pay for shipping, we will ship some and hook you up.
Yeah. So what size you wear? Either an XL or 2XL. Those are the ones we have. How many you want? 1, 2, or 3. If you just want one, that's fine. 1, 2, or 3. I'll get back and give me your address as well. I'll get back to you with a shipping quote of how much it'll cost, and then you just pay the shipping, and we're good. So that's all it takes. So if you are interested, there you go. So free shirt, shipping and handling not included.
Yeah.
So there you go. But I don't mind shipping like 2 or 3 of them to one person. Obviously, we want them to go to someone who's going to wear them, and we know you guys will if you order them. So. Tim, while we were talking, though, we got a couple other people here in the live chat with us. Encore MPW is here. Brian is here from Pixel Planet Arcade in Kentucky, Tim.
Nice.
Let's see. And Joe is from Detroit. He says he's working a second shift at GM in Detroit.
Nice.
Let's see. Who else we got here? Jumping General's here. And he says he's late to the party, but no, you're always right on time here, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we just mentioned the shirt thing. So again, questions@arcaderepairtips.com if you're interested in one of Tim's free shirts, minus shipping and handling. And we'll get you quotes for those. Tim, I think we're all caught up on the live chat. I think we've discussed the shirts and we've discussed the weather. So why not get into some questions?
Sure.
Now? Isn't this the part of the show where we do that?
That's right.
Okay, you just have to remind me sometimes. I don't always know. So the first question we have here tonight, guys, is from Andre. So I'll go ahead and... Oh, wrong. There we go. Okay. Again, not good with the mouse tonight either, apparently. So, our first question is from Andre, and Andre asks, hi, I have 2 games that are not working, a Pac-Man cocktail table and a Simpsons arcade game. The cocktail table is missing a power cord. The Simpsons game makes noise but shows no display. Any assistance or advice would be appreciated. Andre. Now, Tim, we've got Andre here, and you will notice the pictures that he sent in look a little different than maybe your traditional arcade cabinets, correct?
Right.
Okay, so what are we looking at here, Tim? What can we do to get Andre all fixed up with what he has here in his... And actually, I believe... I kind of cut out the first part of the email here, but I believe he said he inherited these when he bought a house.
Oh, okay.
So he bought a house, and these were inside, and so technically they're free to him, which means that he doesn't have to worry about paying for them, but they don't work.
Okay.
So what can he do in order to get both of these working?
Well, we knew sooner or later we would start getting questions about these.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, these are arcade one-ups. Everybody in the chat room, I'm sure, knows that, and probably most of you watching that. And that's okay. We want to help him, though, because you know, they are a type of arcade game, and they do break down the stuff that goes wrong with them. First one's pretty simple. He said that it didn't have a power cord.
Right.
Well, you know, what do we say at Arcade Repair Tips? Always start at power. If you got no cord, you got no way to play.
Right.
So, but they're pretty standard power cord. You could contact Arcade 1UP directly, or buy a replacement from an online retailer just like Amazon or eBay.
And I'm going to stop you right there. I actually put a link to one down in the show description. So there's one on Amazon that specifically says that it works with the cocktail cabinet.
Okay, good.
And so you should be able to order that. I think it was $30. So, I mean, it's not that much out of pocket to get a replacement. You can order that one, or you can get one from eBay, or you can contact Arcade 1UP like Tim mentioned. Okay, continue.
And then the second one, it sounds like a monitor issue, just like we have with a lot of stand-up arcades like the ones behind us. So, you know, we can remove the metal box that contains a game board and check the connections. That's what we want to do first, because we want to make sure it's not just a connection. Also, that the power is getting to that. Now, remember, am I correct, Jonathan? These have a switcher in them, kind of that a step down.
Right. It's actually a brick. So it's a power brick standard that I think just puts out 12 volts. And so, I mean, when you hook it up, it's just 12 volt power there. But inside of that metal box is a connector that will go straight to the monitor from that game board. And so you want to, if you take off that metal box on the back of the monitor, you want to make sure that that connector that's going to the monitor, which it's like a little connector, and I'll show a picture here in a second. It's ribbon style, but it's like 5 or 6 individual wires, and it's a white connector there. You just want to make sure it's not always white. I shouldn't say that. You just want to make sure that that is connected properly to that game board, because if it's not, the monitor won't be getting power. Now, it's possible your monitor went out completely. If it did, you can either get another Arcade 1UP monitor that's compatible, or you can get like the little converter boards that go to HDMI, and then you can use pretty much any monitor you want. And so those are kind of your options as far as like checking the monitor on an arcade.
Yeah, and it's probably, for the cost, you could probably just get the replacement monitor from them.
Exactly.
That's probably what I would recommend. If the connection's good, if the voltage going to it is good, you're still not getting power, that's what I would recommend, Andre.
Absolutely. So, Tim, let me go ahead and put this up here, and let's take a look at what we got. So both of these cabinets are home use arcades made by Arcade 1UP. In order to get a replacement power supply for your Pac-Man cocktail cabinet, you can either contact Arcade 1UP directly, like we mentioned, or you can buy a replacement online from a retailer such as Amazon or eBay. The specs for the power supply should be listed on the Arcade 1UP sticker. And Tim, I've actually got where that sticker is located. So if you're on the one-player side of the cabinet, it's down below that, and it should have voltage, and it should also have the amps as well. Now, with that said, again, the one we linked to down below in the show notes for this should work for that cocktail. I think it's 3 amp. I think it's a 12 volt 3 amp. So it should work specifically for the cocktail if you're looking for a replacement. Like I said, around $30. As for the Simpsons cabinet, it does sound like you're having a monitor issue. You can try removing the metal box that's on the back of the monitor. It's actually mounted there with 2 screws. And then make sure that the game board is hooked up properly to the monitor. So like I said, I think there's a ribbon cable that contains the actual like pinouts for it, kind of like the input connector, and then there's another one that contains the voltage. And so you want to make sure that both of those are hooked up. Really, if you see any loose connectors in there, you need to find where they go. I will tell you that. There should be no loose connectors in there, just based on all of the Arcade 1UPs that I've seen anyway. Yep. So, I mean, all of them, all the connectors inside should have a place to go. And you want to make sure, Tim, this happens a lot on like laptops and things, that power, the little power input where you're plugging in the power supply, make sure that little input socket is soldered correctly to the board, because if that comes loose or wears over time, then obviously you won't get power to the board. So always start power is something we always say, so that's always something that you should check. But also check the input connector and the power connector for the monitor inside of that little metal box that's mounted to the back of the arcade monitor. Tim, do you have anything else to say before we move on from Andre's question?
If all that is correct, and we do know that it is a monitor issue, of course, you could open it up and try to see if there's caps and stuff, but our recommendation is at that point, just replace it. They're not that expensive, and, I mean, unless your soldering skills are just significant, it's probably got a lot of surface-mounted chips and things very tiny. I don't know that it'd be worth the trouble. It's not like a Wells Gardner chassis where you could really get to everything and pull those parts off. They're very small. Could it be done? Yes. Would it be worth looking into? Maybe if you just want to fool with something like that. But our recommendation is just go ahead and replace the monitor.
And there's a lot of people who are modding their arcade 1-ups, and so there is a pretty nice supply of monitors like on eBay and places like that if you can't get one directly from Arcade 1-Up. Tim, Arcade 1-Up doesn't always stock the parts that you need when you contact support, but a lot of times they will. We've had them ship us stuff before with no problems. But if for some reason you can't get one from Arcade 1-Up, or you just want to check out the eBay market, it may be worth it just because of the people who mod them. A lot of times when they do the mod, they'll put a bigger monitor inside of it if they're doing like a PC based or a Raspberry Pi based mod. Yeah. And so they'll take the old monitor out and then they'll sell it on eBay or wherever.
But the fact you got them for free.
Yeah.
You know, you could not spend less than $200. You could get them both going.
Absolutely. So, for sure. So, Andre, hopefully that answers your question, and good luck getting those Arcade 1-Ups up and running. Hey, I mean, anything you get for free, right? I mean, that's a good deal. I mean, even Arcade 1-Ups, right, Tim?
I dug one out of the trash.
That's right, exactly. You got one free, so there you go. But still cool. I still think they're cool. They're still fun to play. I know they're not original hardware or anything like that, but, you know, my kids have a blast with them. So, there you go. Tim, I'm going to go back over to the live chat for just a second. It looks like Delusional's Arcade is here, Tim.
Hey, Dale.
So he's here as well, and I think that's everybody. And Brian says smash that like button. We would greatly appreciate it if you would do that, for sure. If you would like to smash that like button, do it, please, because all of that is appreciated. Mm-hmm. So, again, just so glad to have everybody here tonight, Tim. I feel like we've, I don't know, it feels like a long time, but at the same time, I think next month's going to be longer, right?
Right. We got a few weeks in between.
Right,
but...
exactly. Oh, YouTube Punk says, does the Mr. Gaddy's t-shirt have Arcade Daddy on it?
No.
Okay.
I will sign it for you, though, and write that on there. No, it just says Mr. Gaddy's is white with red lettering, I think.
Now I got to dig it out.
Now you got to see it.
There's a lot of shirts here, but it's not that many. So, here you go.
Yeah, well... Says,
I'm just here for the pizza.
I'm here for the pizza.
And Mr. Gaddy's on the front. Yeah. And Tim will sign it if you put that in your request.
Yeah, sure.
So for those of you guys who weren't here earlier, we're giving away some of Tim's arcade shirt collection, but you have to pay shipping and handling for it. So if you would like a extra large or 2XL shirt, you can send an email to questions@arcaderepairtips.com with the size, how many you want, between 1 and 3, and your address, and I'll get you back a shipping quote, and we'll ship them out to you. The shirts are free. The shipping and handling is extra.
Yeah, probably 8 out of 10 are extra larges.
Yeah.
That's why, I've gained a lot of muscle.
There you go. Exactly. So there we go. And YouTube Punk says, I'm just here for the arcade. So there we go. Well, maybe just for the tips. And with that said, Tim, let us move on to the next question from Steven, right? So here we go. Hey mates, I have a scratch-built cabinet with new original parts ordered from America that has a TV tube paired with a universal chassis. I live in Australia, so we didn't get any Nintendo cabs, but I have a faithful reproduction minus the Sanyo monitor. I will be playing a game and all of a sudden my screen will scroll left or right and suddenly stop and go back to normal. On some occasions it lasts too long, so I will turn the vertical hold to the left to get it to stop as I assume it's losing sync. A few times I've had to go all the way to the left to get it to stop. I'll play the rest of the game, but the next time I turn on the cab, it won't sync until it's back to the position it was in the day before, and the process feels like it's repeating all too often. This will happen with both a Donkey Kong PCB or a 60-in-1 Chinese PCB, Tim, so it doesn't matter the board. The chassis is a Waya C2420HR. So far, I've checked all the connections, I've changed the remote board for the controls with a known good one, so the issue remains, so it's probably not the pots. Okay. The picture looks amazing. The chassis is pretty much brand new, only a year of use. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear from you, but I understand the complexity of trying to diagnose something you can't see. Regards, Steven. And I appreciate that last statement, Tim, because there is complexity in not seeing things. I think that's something that we do take for granted sometimes, which is why we appreciate it when you send us pictures, right?
Exactly.
So, like Andre, if we just would have taken his Simpsons and his Pac-Man cocktail, if we didn't have the pictures, Tim, we
wouldn't have known there were 1-ups.
Exactly. So, I mean, it makes a difference. So, if you can send pictures, we do appreciate it. Video is a little bit more difficult because a lot of times like our email client will block that, but if you do have video, upload to YouTube, send us a link, something like that. A lot of times we can get it that way. So Tim, we have Steven here and he's got kind of a fully custom built Nintendo cab, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Except for it doesn't have a Sanyo monitor in it. It has a Waya chassis monitor in it. And so what's happening is that it's like his vertical hold is just not holding. Right? It's like sometimes it holds, sometimes I gotta turn it this way, turn it that way, whatever, and like I can get it to hold sometimes, other times I can't. So, what do you think is going on with Steven's Waya chassis?
Well, a lot of frustration. I can see it and I can hear it in that because, it's like he can get it to work and he plays some games and the next day you gotta go back one of the problems is you're constantly gonna have is that with the Nintendo cabinet and the wiring and so forth, it may not be his best monitor choice, but at the same time, it's got to deal with what he has, right? So the fact that he says that, I would have said check your pots and stuff, but he's tried different things, different PCBs. The only thing I can really think is probably the best idea for him is to make sure his wiring is good.
Sure.
Because this definitely could be a wiring issue, and you want to make sure that all the wires are to where they're supposed to go, and he can look at the pinouts and stuff for that. But really check. In my opinion, it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and restrip some of the sync wires, redo them again, make sure the connections are really solid. And I would think that would be my best guess at what to do without just going back with a different monitor.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just doing a little bit of looking up on Waya chassis, Tim. I know that we're not big fans, but a lot of these newer ones, that's about the only new style chassis you can find are these like generic universal Waya style chassis. And so a lot of times, Tim, when we've seen this problem creep up, it's because there was a sync wiring issue or a sync connection issue.
Right.
And so now it's possible that there's a problem with the sync circuit itself, either the vertical or horizontal on the chassis. That's definitely could be the case. But a lot of times you would be surprised it's in the wiring, which is very interesting. So Tim, I'm going to go ahead and throw this up here real quick so we can kind of go over it. So, Tim, for those people who aren't familiar with JAMA and the video sync it puts out a composite negative sync. And composite negative sync means that it's the horizontal and vertical syncs together.
Right.
Now, depending on your monitor chassis, you may have a composite negative sync pin that you can connect directly to, or you may have a negative vertical sync and a negative horizontal sync pin that you need to hook to. And so one of the very first things that we would make sure that you've got the syncs hooked up correctly for your chassis. And Tim, I saw this exact issue with a Waya chassis one time where we had to split the syncs in order to get it to hold properly.
Right.
This is not, like I said, so this is actually something that even happens to us. So let's start off this repair by making sure the sync wiring going from your game board to your monitor chassis is making a good connection. So check the wiring and the input pins, including the solder on the chassis. You may need to combine or separate the sync wires. So Tim, what I have on the bottom screen is kind of a cross of a 4600 you might recognize, Tim, a 4600 HV card. But on a 4600, we have to separate the negative sync into the negative vertical and the negative horizontal syncs in order to hook them up to the pins. And so I believe some Waya chassis, I know some Waya chassis require this too. And so you need to make sure, if you've got the manual for that particular model, you need to make sure that you've got the sync hooked up where it's supposed to be. And if you need to split the sync wiring in order to get the horizontal and vertical out, that you're doing that. Because it does seem like this vertical hold issue a lot of times has to do with a sync not being connected or not being connected properly. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. That's what my guess would be. It's a wiring issue.
Right. Now,
the way
again,
it talks about.
Right. Now,
or it's just on the board and you.
Right. Now, it could be a problem with the actual monitor chassis. Right. Now, considering this monitor chassis is new. I mean, that would make me think that there's not soldering issues, but we can't assume that, Tim. As we know, you can get stuff brand new and it doesn't work. So it may be worth going through and just following through on the horizontal and vertical sections of the monitor to make sure that everything looks good, that there, you can kind of trace through and that there's no broken traces or anything like that on those lines. But considering it's new, I wouldn't think that. It would be my point, but it's worth checking for sure. So checking the horizontal and vertical sections, making sure that those are intact and working properly. But other than that, it could just be as simple as making sure your sync wires are connected properly. Tim, do you have anything else for Steven before we move on?
No, but Steven, contact us back if that's not the case. We would gladly try to go further with you, but I really would start there.
Yeah, and if you have a picture of the actual chassis that we can see, I tried to look up that model number, but I couldn't find a lot of information. I was looking for like a manual or something, Tim, that we could kind of get a better idea. For some reason, I had trouble locating one. So if you have like a picture of it, that may help us identify it a little bit better. Because sometimes, Tim, they'll use different model numbers for the same chassis. So, I mean, Waya is weird like that. I don't know. They change one little thing and it's a whole new model number. So you may send us a picture as well of what your setup is, and we may be able to better help you troubleshoot it. But I think the very first the very first thing we need to check is to make sure our sync is connected properly. We're getting good sync all the way through. And it can even be from your JAMA harness. Maybe your sync pin on your harness is not connected well to the thing. So you could try gently kind of pressing on your JAMA harness where the sync wire is to see if that makes a difference in that hole, just to see. So, but other than that, Tim, I don't think there's anything else we can really tell them without maybe some pictures or maybe a little bit more information on the chassis.
I think so.
Okay, so Steven, hopefully that answers your question. And good luck trying to get that thing to sync properly. And Tim, unfortunately with these universal chassis, this is a common problem. Yes. I will say that. So it may be hard to troubleshoot just because of that. But if you have additional information you can give us about the chassis, let us know. We'll try to help you out further. So, okay, Tim, before we move on in the outline, we have a couple of things over here in the live chat. We have Jumping General says, just starting to do my own monitor repairs, cap kits, flybacks, etc. I've never done this. Any advice?
Well, there's no better experience. Just the more you do, the better. And just buy broken chassis and try to work on them like on eBay or something. Get them cheap and just try to repair them. And watch. There's a lot of good videos, not just ours. There's a lot of good repair videos. And what you can't fix, reach out to some of the people that do them repairs. Most of them are really nice guys, and they'll give you some ideas of where to go. But it's just practice. It's just practice. We always say, we always laugh if you watched our videos with Michael. First thing he would do is touching up solder, just seeing when he would always do that. And we always talk about that a lot. So before I would pull any parts off, I would definitely touch up make sure the solder is fresh and stuff. But good luck. I think it's awesome. We got into it more out of necessity than anything. We just couldn't find anybody to work on them. And we had to learn how to repair them. Unfortunately, we made good friends with Michael, and he taught us a lot. And there's still a lot that we don't know. We don't do it full time for a living. But you just learn things over time. And, even the shotgun approach worked for us for a long time. I think now we think, well, if we can take a 2-hour project and make it a 20-minute project, I would definitely invest if that's what you want to do and make kind of either a living or a hobby at it. I would definitely get with what's those meters called, Jonathan? My mind's going blank. An ESR meter or something that, would save you some time, if nothing else. And try to get out of that shotgun approach and really learn how to read specific things so that it will save you some time in the long run. But, man, there's just, when we first started, there were very few, outside of a couple manuals and some flow charts and stuff, there were no videos or anything to watch. And so good luck to you. I hope that, but I would definitely invest in the best tools. I guess that's probably what my best
test
thing.
Pattern generator is like a key.
Yeah, test pattern generator, an ESR meter, something, a good multimeter. I would go with a good multimeter that can read those values and stuff. And then maybe if you're going to do it, you might want to get a rejuvenator or something like that.
Sounds good. Let's see. Joe Flores, I have an original Pac-Man arcade game, all original hardware. One of the bulbs in the marquee is burned out. What is the watt bulb what bulb do I use?
Well, most of them, just from experience over the years, are 40 or 60 watts. If you get too bright, it will damage your marquee. And you've seen probably some with burn spots in them. I highly would recommend just going in and switching out to LED. They run cooler. You can get it in soft white, bright white, whatever you like. I think they look amazing now. I like the LED lights behind a marquee. I think they look good. Note that it will show any flaws in your marquee. But, I think the original was just a 40 or 60 watt. I've seen so many different kinds that, and it's more of a personal preference, I think, but I would probably put LEDs in there because it runs so much cooler and won't damage the paint and stuff on your marquee.
There you go. Okay, let's see. Delusional says a test pattern generator is essential. Yes, exactly. I mean, it just makes everything so much easier than trying to have to hook it up to a cabinet that has a good, test mode that has all the test patterns in it. Plus, it can help you diagnose things really quickly. So, test pattern generator is key for sure. as far as monitor stuff goes. But yeah, as far as the bulbs go, yeah, I mean, 40 watt I think is pretty common.
Yeah.
And LED doesn't matter because they run cooler typically anyway.
Right. Then it's just a personal preference. Yeah. How bright do you like it, or do you like soft white? I like them bright. I just think it pops, There
you go. Okay, Tim. Well, I think we've caught up in the live chat. So
let
us move on to the next outline question from Adam. And Adam says, do you know if the Super Hang-On upright cabinet power supply can be replaced by a standard switching power supply? I can't find any info on it specifically. Thanks for any help. Now, Tim, this was kind of an odd question because, as far as I know, Super Hang-On has a switching power supply in it already.
Most of them I've ever seen
Right,
have
but it's
one.
a little different. It's a little different, right?
Yes. And I would say we have quite a bit of knowledge in that because you might remember our friend Ed gave us all kinds of Sega hang-on parts one time, and at one time we had, I don't know, 4 or 5 cabinets. We had boxes of parts, and a lot of them had power supplies taken out of them. And I do remember us putting a newer, what we would call a switcher, newer style in there. But it's real simple. They have that kind of power supply. You're probably looking at yours and going, it just doesn't look right. Something's different. And there is a couple differences, and we'll talk about those. So what you have, number one, is it's a 4-letter word in that Sega game. And some of the wire colors are not the normal wire colors what we think about. Like your red is not your 5 volt most of the time. It's actually yellow. And so they also, Jonathan, if we remember right, it does not use the 12 volts, which is really common. If all you guys have wired up cabinets, you normally wire up the plus 12, the plus 5, sometimes the negative, but most of the time you always wire them up. And this game in particular is one that you don't. So if you put your normal switcher in there, you're not going to hook up the positive 12. So your coin light, stuff like that, are probably going to run off a 5 volt. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, it's the rest of it's simple. Just make sure you're running the 5 volts that it does require. I think are yellow wires, or whatever wires you're hooking up that you're not hooking them up to 12 because you can do some damage. Okay.
Right, so let me go ahead and put this up here, Tim. And I actually have a picture here that came out of a Super Hang-On, so that way we get an idea. And you'll notice that it does not have a 12-volt line, just like Tim mentioned. So, yes, the Super Hang-On switching power supply can be replaced by a standard switching power supply. The wire colors are a bit different, like Tim mentioned. Okay, so Sega, in this particular game, uses yellow for 5 volts, white for ground, and it actually does use red for 12 volts, but you won't find it in this game, but in some Sega games you will. So you need to tap into the AC and connect the wires to the correct voltages. See the wiring diagram in the manual for more information. Tim, I put that manual wiring diagram link below in the show notes, so that way you can go. So please note that the original Super Hang-On power supply did not have a 12 volts terminal on it. As you can see, there's a 5, there's ground, and there's AC, and that's it. You can see there's 2 5s, 2 grounds, 2 ACs, and that's it. And so be sure to leave this terminal empty when transferring the wires and connectors, but otherwise you can make it work. Just leave the 12 volts alone. Yeah. And I know that's really hard to do because if you're used to hooking up arcade games, you're like, oh, I got to hook up the 12 volt, right? And I don't like the wire coloring here because, like Tim mentioned, usually we think plus 5 is red, we think plus 12 is yellow, we think of like negative 5 is white. But here we're all over the place with the yellow for plus 5, the white for ground. And some Sega games that use 12 volt have a red for the 12 volt line, but this one does not. So, but yeah, you can stick a regular switcher in there. You just need to make sure you leave the 12 volts line off, is what it comes down to.
Just one quick tip if you do that, what I would do is I would take that 12 volt screw all the way out. Just take it out and remove it. And maybe you can even take a marker and mark over it, so that down the road or another time, you'll help you remember not to hook up anything to it. Just a quick tip some stuff that I've done in the past.
Yeah, I think Adam was probably frustrated, Tim, because he's probably looking for a switching power supply that just put out 5 volt. And while they do, you can find those, they're way more rare than like a standard switcher with 12 volt output.
Right.
So way more rare and usually more expensive. But you can get the little off the shelf, like I forget what they pick style power supply. I forget what they call them, like little single board power supplies that you could get that would work like in something like that. But for the most part, I think you'd be better off just getting a switching power supply, standard switching arcade power supply, and like Tim mentioned, taking the screw for the 12 volts out and then hooking up the 5s, the grounds, and the AC. So,
Right.
Anything else for Adam here, Tim, before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Sounds good. So, Adam, hopefully that answers your question, and good luck getting your Super Hang-On up and running. Obviously, Tim, power supply issues. So,
Yes.
But hopefully that'll get it going for you. Let's see what else we got here. John McGeneral says he has 45 games in his home collection. He needs to learn monitor repair. Yes, you do.
You need to learn a lot of repairs if you have 45 games.
Absolutely. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And Delusional said the same thing. 40-watt soft white. He said a 9-watt LED replacement works great. Runs cooler too. Yeah. So the 9-watt in the LED, 40-watt if you're in the filament. So it just depends on which bulb you like. Obviously, Tim, I don't know. Is anywhere selling filaments anymore? Can you still get regular light bulbs?
You can. They still sell them because I was looking for one the other day. Maybe at like Home Depot or something you can find it, but at Walmart you're hardly ever going to see them anymore. It's just like, whoa. I don't know why I wanted one. I think I don't remember what refrigerator bulb or something. I could not find one. And anyway, just I'm sure you could order one online or whatever, or you might have one in an old lamp or something you could put in there. But I would go with the LED. It just runs so much cooler. It's not so much the brightness of it, although I do like that. I like the fact that it's cool to the touch. Can't tell you how many Pac-Man games I took the thing off and accidentally touched that bulb or something, and it's really hot or can get hot, and it'll create like a back. Everybody's seen it on the back of your marquee. You'll have a burnt brown spot or something, and this can totally ruin them, especially on certain games.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's move on here, Tim. I think live chat's caught up, so we're moving to our next question. And Tim, this is the one that inspired the title for tonight's episode,
Okay.
Dipping Our Toes in This Arcade Thing. So
right.
Here we go to Tim. This one is from John. So, John writes, I've recently dipped my toe into the home arcade thing, and my first acquisition is a 1942 cabinet. When I first turn it on, it seems to look fine, but as I play it sometimes even as soon as I start the game, the details of the graphics aren't there. For example, where there should be textured water and islands scrolling by, I may just have a plain blue screen. And between stages, the carrier might be there when I first start playing, but once it seems to warm up, it will go away. My plane will still land on it between stages, and then take off for the next one, but the carrier is invisible. Let's go on here, Tim. I figure it has to be the board somewhere. Some graphic glitch I can't begin to guess at. Being new to this, any advice? Thank you, by the way, for your videos and recommendations. It's definitely given me a serious jump start, and I'm excited to dig in. John. Okay, Tim, so we have John here. He's got a 1942, and Tim, just by the way he's describing it, it sounds like the ship is there, the enemies are there, but it sounds like the background sprites are missing, if that makes sense. So, like, the little background sprite layer is not, for some reason, coming up. And so, like he mentions, probably a board issue, right, Tim?
More than likely. And, of course, we say this all the time. We're going to always start at power. We're going to make sure the voltage is there and that it's at the correct voltage. Your 5 and your 12 volts are just fine. Because if you don't, sometimes that will cause graphic or glitches or other issues just because it's not getting enough power and emulate or running the processor like it should. But more than likely, the fact it still plays and kind of goes on, that's another key, is that he's not having any trouble playing it. In fact, it's funny, his thing even lands in the middle of the ocean, right?
Right.
And not on a ship. So he definitely has some issues and some kind of chips on there. Not smart enough to know which chips, some kind of ROM chips, I'm sure, on it. One thing I think that you mentioned earlier, Jonathan, when we were talking about the show, is that this can happen, though, and we said to make sure that the power is good, but also make sure your connectors are good, especially the ribbon cables that attach the two boards together. They will cause some weird issues kind of like this also.
Yeah, and Tim, we see this with all sorts of games. I think of when we had our kicks.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Tron. And some of these other two-board sets that have these like little flimsy ribbon cables on them.
Yeah.
And these ribbon cables over time, they just like the connectors themselves will sometimes corrode, and then the ribbon cables themselves will just start like having issues. I don't know what it is. And so a lot of times when we do have this, that's like one of the first things we need to check, is to make sure that the actual ribbon connectors are ribbon cables, and the connectors themselves that those are plugging into are making a good connection to the board and to each end of the individual boards themselves. So, Tim, let me go ahead and throw this up for everybody to see here. So from your description, John, it sounds like the background sprite layer on your 1942 game board is going in and out. We would recommend checking your power supply first, like Tim mentioned, just to rule it out. Be sure to check it on the board when the issues are occurring to assure the voltage is correct. And Tim, this is key. He's saying that it'll start okay, and then it'll kind of start going out on him. And so make sure that the voltage is still good going to the game board at that point, okay? Because if we're having a voltage drop, that can cause it, right? That could give us some issues. So, and then the second part here, Tim, though, is probably more what we're looking at. If the power supply voltage is good, then it probably is a game board problem. You can try cleaning the board, reseating the ROM chips, which I noticed Reg's show just said. You can try checking the connectors that attach the two boards together. You may need to replace the ribbon cables or the connectors themselves, like the actual connectors on the boards, as those can corrode over time. But the ribbon cables themselves can also just go bad and stop working as well. And Delusional says that Brad Raydell makes repros of those flat ribbon cables if you need them. Good. So there are repros available for those. So you may want to consider that. Just check the ribbon cables themselves though, and you may even try removing them completely and then putting them back in to make sure that they're seated together properly. But Tim, a lot of times with this background sprite issue kind of thing, it does seem like those connectors play a big part in that, especially with 1942 boards. And so I would definitely check those ribbon cables. Again, though, kind of like what Razor Show said, very possible it's ROM chips. For some reason, the ROM chips maybe they're not getting good voltage at part of the time, so they're not loading properly. Could actually be the RAM. So you're like whenever it's trying to load those graphics from the ROMs into RAM, that for some reason it's just not displaying properly. Could be that as well. Tim, we have an entire video on inspecting an arcade board where we kind of talk about some of that stuff, so we would recommend checking that out. But the ribbon cables in this particular case, I think, are really what we want to focus on.
I
Tim,
think so,
do you have
too.
anything else here for John before we move on?
No, I think that'll help you a lot, John, if you'll check into that. And then you could just have a bad chip or something, and maybe you need to have your board repaired or pick up another board. But I would definitely try those things. And I meant to say that, too, about reseating the ROMs. That's a great idea. Just, make sure that they're cleaned, and anything that can unplug without having to unsolder, if it's socketed chip, by all means, be careful with that. We got videos on how to do that, but that would be a great place to start also.
Sounds good. So, John, hopefully answers your question, and good luck getting your 1942 back up and running. So, and it sounds like it's okay at first, which is interesting too. So,
yeah.
The power supply still needs to be checked for sure, especially when it's having the issue. Okay, I'm going over to the live chat. Okay, I think we're okay.
Okay.
I think we're okay. So let us move on to Rodolfo, Tim. That is our next question here. And Rodolfo writes, "Hi, I hope you can help me. I've got a MAME PC arcade cabinet that was given to me, and it does not seem to be working. The guy who gave it to me said it was working fine, and then stopped, and he doesn't want to fix it. He thinks someone may have shut it down wrong. Any ideas? Please help. Thank you for your time." Now, Tim, when we think about MAME-based PC systems, we think about a PC, right?
Right.
So this actually does probably have a PC in it. Now, it may be a Raspberry Pi, it may be something else, but a lot of times if it's a MAME PC, obviously we're probably talking about an actual computer inside there, Tim.
Right.
Now, there's obviously issues with running a computer inside of an arcade cabinet, such as the auto startup.
Right.
If you set that in the BIOS and the BIOS dies, then all of a sudden you're not getting the auto startup anymore. There's some other things. Tim, is there anything that you want to mention here about Rodolfo's problem before I kind of go on my spill about PCs in general?
Well, that's what the first thing I would do is probably take the PC out of the game, and I would probably put it on my test bench, and we want to see, is power getting to the PC? Is it just literally, can you switch it on? Will you turn it on? Or is it something that needs to be tricked or jumpered or something to get it, or a BIOS setting, which you know a lot more about that than I do, John, but I want to make sure that PC is working. If the PC is working and running and everything, and you're not getting some power out, then we maybe have a video card or whatever. We could have a lot of other problems, but it sounds like if it's not doing anything, it just kind of died. We know this for a fact that a lot of times old PCs would have a battery that would hold those settings and things like that. And if you don't play them for a while, they tend to drain, tend to die, and then you can't get them to turn back on. You would need to replace the battery and kind of jumper it to get it back going, then go in the BIOS and tell it to automatically come on when powered up. stuff like that. Those are the places that I would definitely start.
For sure, Tim. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this up here so we can talk about the PC a little bit, because I do want to get into that just a hair. So let's start off this repair by checking the PC itself, like Tim mentioned. On the cabinet, and if you can turn on the cabinet and see if you can hear or visibly tell if the PC is powering on. And like Tim mentioned, you may take the PC out completely and just put it on your test bench. Good way to do it. If it's not coming on, try searching for a power button on the PC. If you cannot find one, you should be able to power it on by jumping the PS on pin, which power supply on pin, to a common pin, COM. And then once you do that, it should come on. That is a hard jumper on most motherboards, Tim, on the PC. So if you jumper that real quick, Tim, what I usually do is I use a...
I use a paper clip.
Paper clip, exactly. Use a paper clip. We'll jump for it real quick. And Tim, we got into the habit of when we build MAME machines, just going ahead and hooking up a button to those pins. So that way we can just turn it on automatically if we needed to. So, but that's where we want to start. So once the PC is on, check the screen for any sorts of messages that it might give you for an idea of any issues. You may need to take the PC out of the cabinet and hook it up to a regular computer monitor just to see, because that would tell us, Tim, if the PC is coming on, is it the monitor that's having the issue, or is it like my computer monitor, or is it the video card on the PC that's not outputting? Right. Like that'll give us that kind of stuff. Now, once you get the PC up, it may be more of a software-based troubleshooting at that point. So, like, let's say the hard drive died. Well, if the hard drive dies, then you may just get a black screen, right? That just has some information on it or something like that, and it may just say it can't boot or whatever it is. And so if that's the case, you're going to have to rebuild a software image from scratch, which may be a pain. But you could do it; it's possible. And there's some packages out there that are kind of pre-built for that if you want to do that. So, but yeah, YouTube Punk says this sounds like a can of worms. I would agree with that. You're starting with the PC, but this could definitely turn into more of a long-term issue or kind of a long-term problem-solving stint with this, if you will. So, Tim, is there anything else here for Rodolfo before we move on?
Not at this time. Get back with us. Tell us what you find, and we definitely can help if you need to go further, or if that's not the case and we're totally off and it's running and everything. It could be several other issues, but we got to start with power. We got to make sure that your PC is firing up and kicking on first. So keep in touch with us and let us know.
Absolutely. Rexer Show says if he sees lights on the motherboard and it's getting power, it could be a dead battery causing it not to turn on. Exactly. So a lot of times when we set up MAME PCs, we will change the BIOS setting to automatically come on when the PC gets power. So that way it'll automatically boot with the cabinet. But when your CMOS battery dies, that setting may go away and the default may be not to come on with power. And if that's the case, then you'll have to jumper it to get to come on. So,
well, think about during that era, all of us had desktop computers. It didn't just come on all the time. You had to physically turn it on.
Right.
And so a lot of those same things were put into games, and they switched it. But once that battery dies, it goes back into that. It wants a power up button. And that's what we're doing by jumpering that, is creating a connection, just like a button to start it.
Right.
And see if that works. Then you would have to go in your CMOS settings and tell it to automatically come on upon power or when power hits it. But we can't get to that far until we know what's going on with yours at this moment. Is it running at all?
Exactly. So, but hopefully it answers your question, Rodolfo, or at least gives you a good place to start. If you need additional help, get back with us and let us know what you find once you either take the computer out and see if it'll come on, or if you can get it to come on within the cabinet. Razor Show says he bought a GT for cheap. Guy thought it didn't work. Battery was dead. That was all. Yeah. Very possible. It happens all the time. We see it all the time. So,
well, I can't tell you, back when I worked for Chuck E. Cheese, how many of those Raw Thrill games, we ran them every day.
Sure.
And they just died over time. And you would think, oh, man, and I would be, I would go to call for troubleshooting. They're like, well, check the battery. I'm like, oh, the battery's at 2.4 volts or whatever. And so, I've seen it multiple times, and these are games that get turned on every day and run for 15, 16 hours. You can imagine one that didn't run for several months or set in somebody's garage or shed. That's what normally happens.
Sure. What was it? Who's the company that makes GT? Incredible Technology. Incredible Technologies had actually modified their BIOS in order to make auto come on the default setting. So even if in fact, they just took the batteries off those boards. And so they actually had reprogrammed the BIOS chips to where it would just automatically boot the board so that you didn't need the battery to save that setting. So, I mean, that's nice. Ross should have done that too.
Right, but this is a MAME, which tells us somebody
it's an off-the-shelf PC. Right, exactly.
Probably off the shelf.
It is not custom, correct.
Right.
So. Okay, Tim. Well, I think the last part we have here, as far as the questions and answers go for this month, is the quick question and answer portion of the show. And this is the time when I rapid fire 3 questions at Tim, some short answer questions here, and he rapid fires 3 answers back to us. These are a little bit shorter than the questions we normally get for some of the other ones that we did previously in the show, but this just is a good way for us to get a whole bunch knocked out at once. And so, Tim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, well, let's do it then. Going to throw them up here real quick so everybody can see. So Cool Casper writes, "Hi, sir. Do you know why my arcade monitor is leaning back?" Okay. Asutosh writes, "I lost my light guns. I have the game in a CRT TV. How do I acquire a light gun?" And then Jeanette says, "I have a golden T99 arcade game, and all of a sudden the screen either started to flash colors. The game still plays, but the screen is either solid green or just flashes different colors. Do you have any ideas on what might be wrong? Thank you." So Tim, just to reiterate here, Cool Casper, why is my arcade monitor leaning back? Asutosh, I need a light gun. Where do I get one? And Jeanette, I have a golden T that's just flashing colors all over the place. So Tim, what do you think's going on with each of these? Let's go with Cool Casper first. Why is my arcade monitor leaning back, Tim?
I have no clue.
There you go. There you go.
No, but the truth is that it could have came loose. There is mounting brackets and stuff in there. Sometimes they come loose. Some people like it that way.
Sure.
And we bought games before. It drives me crazy. I don't like it to be pushed back, especially if I see a big gap.
Let's look at Galaga and Miss Pac-Man here for a second.
They're leaning.
They're leaning pretty far.
But the glass is right there. I don't know. But the general rule is that it should be however your game is set up. That is made like that. If it's made to be set up and it's falling back, it could just be a bracket or something. Or you can even put a couple pieces of wood, push it forward yourself.
Yep.
But he didn't give us a picture, so
yeah,
that would have really helped on this one a little bit.
Agreed. Asutosh here, Tim. So where can I get light guns at?
Well, honestly, he didn't tell us what game.
Nope.
So there's a lot of different games with all different light guns. When I want to buy a light gun, I usually go to eBay.
Yep.
And the reason is because you have a lot of sellers that sell them brand new. They buy them in bulk from Hap, and a lot of times they're cheaper than you can buy them from the manufacturer themselves. Of course, there's a couple manufacturers. A lot of it depends on the game, but eBay would be my quick answer.
Sounds good. And then we have Jeanette. What's up with these colors? My game's playing, the Golden Tee's playing, but I got colors all over the place. What's happening?
Well,
full screen colors.
She needs to check her drive transistors on her monitor chassis, make sure the solder and everything is okay, and she can play around with those a little bit. Most of the time when that's happening, it's it's either a cold solder joint or a wiring issue. Mm-hmm. And those can be the 2 places that I would check the wires going to, the neck board especially, and then the wires from your game, any kind of wires involving your colors, and then also I would probably reflow the solder on the backs of those transistors.
Sounds good, Tim. So let's go ahead and put this up here so everybody can kind of recap what was said. So, Cool Casper, the monitor could have come loose from its cabinet mounting. Okay, well, that may be why it's leaning back too much. In general, it helps the players see the screen and creates an environmental effect if it is slanted really far back. So we think of games like I said, Galaga, Miss Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, right, where we have kind of these slanted back monitors that are pretty far slanted. People like that, like Tim mentioned, and some people will mount the monitors in their games like that. That's a personal preference. Tim, if the game is dedicated, I'm going to leave the monitor in the position it was in.
Yeah.
But if it's something where it's a generic cabinet, like what I did for this generic Dynamo cabinet, I remounted the monitor so that it was straight flush with the glass because I have a LCD in there. Mm-hmm. And so you may want to do that if you've got something like that where maybe you're going from CRT to LCD and now you want your monitor to be more forward instead of leaning back like it was. So,
yeah.
But if it's leaning back too much, it may have fallen through its mounting or something like that.
Yeah, be careful. It could be something that's
we've seen it before.
Danger. Yeah,
exactly. We've seen it before, so be careful. Asutosh, well, the light gun depends on the game, right? So we have optical based, we have potentiometer based light guns. So you can get both these from arcadeparts.com parts suppliers on our resources page at arcaderepairtips.com/resources. Or like Tim mentioned, from eBay as well. There are several resellers there that will sell you one. Tim, of course, if you're talking about people that we recommend, Twisted Quarters are a really great place to get them from. Arcade Shop's a really good place to get them from. Arcade Parts and Repair. Those are all great places that you can get light guns from. So It just depends on what you're looking for, though. Identify the game. Then we can figure out what kind of light gun it uses. And then from there, you can order the correct one for your game. And then the golden tee, Jeanette, check the color drive transistors on your monitor chassis and the color adjustments on your neck board. Check your input wiring that runs from the game board to your monitor as well as the input pins. Tim, if these come loose, all it takes to get like an oversaturation of colors for one color to go out. Right. So if you lose the red, all of a sudden your screen looks blue-green, right? Like basically like a really bad blue-green. Or sometimes your drive transistor will fail and it'll oversaturate everything. So you will get like that big red screen or whatever the case may be. And so with that in mind, just check all of that stuff. Make sure your monitor is working properly, because a lot of times when we have color issues like that, it is usually a monitor issue. Tim, is there anything else you want to say about any of these questions before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, sounds good. So, cool, Casper, Asutosh, and Jeanette, hopefully we gave you some good ideas on those questions. Please let us know if we can help you further out with any of those issues that you guys sent in your question about. So, a couple of things here in the live chat, Tim. Angelina says, thank you for the Rubik's Cube. You're welcome. So for our December episode, Tim, we sent out prizes to everybody who sent in an email. Oh, and it was all different stuff. And so Angelina got a Rubik's Cube in that. We sent out Rubik's Cubes. We sent out handheld games. We sent out like a handheld pinball machine, I think, like one of the little like cheap handheld pinball machines.
Nice.
Just all sorts of stuff. So that's, when you watch, you win sometimes, right, Tim?
Right.
But December we did that, and you know how shipping was, it was expensive. So there you go. But I'm glad that you got your Rubik's Cube. And hey, Tim, what is more 80s than a Rubik's Cube?
I can't get much more 80s than that.
Maybe arcades, and that would be it. So that's it. Let's see. And I think we're caught up on all of that, Tim, as far as the live chat is concerned. So we're pretty much done with the questions, although if you guys have any in the live chat you want to discuss, we can do that. But, Tim, we're coming into the news and discussion portion of the show. We've got a couple of stories that we're going to be covering here, just about things that happened over the previous month. And, Tim, this first story is about everybody's favorite professional arcade gamer, Billy Mitchell, right?
Yeah.
It's everybody's, right? So, notorious arcade gamer Billy Mitchell settles suit over Donkey Kong World Record. And this was from Courthouse News Service. Tim, I think they broke this story because I couldn't find any additional places that posted before them. So competitive gamer Billy Mitchell has reached a settlement in his defamation lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, the video game database that stripped Mitchell of his world records in 2018. The settlement was announced in LA County Superior Court on January 11th, 3 months before the lawsuit was set to go to trial. Details of the settlement have not been disclosed. Tim, this is a confidential settlement, but I do think that there was something in it about him getting his scores reinstated. Because it does seem like some of his scores have started to show back up on Twin Galaxies.
Okay.
Maybe not all of them, but some of them for sure. And so, while we don't know for sure that was a part of the settlement, it does seem that way, just from the way that things have been kind of hashing out recently. So, anyways, Tim, what do you think about this lawsuit? I'm glad they settled it.
Yes.
I mean, nobody wanted to see this thing go to trial. Even the judge didn't want to see this thing go to trial.
No, I don't think so. It's good.
It's such a nothing to me. I mean, I understand, like, it's a big deal to people, but I don't know. Does Billy Mitchell matter as much as he did before? I think, is the height of Billy Mitchell's popularity like the King of Kong, and then ever since then it's been kind of...
Probably so. I'm betting there's people watching us that don't even know who Billy Mitchell is.
You're probably right.
So
if you don't know who Billy Mitchell is, post in the live show, either in the live chat or the comments section. Let's see. I'm curious. But like I said, I think this is a big nothing. So, Tim, it's still newsworthy, I feel like, for arcade people, because I think most of us know who Billy Mitchell is, and we all have opinions of him. Tim, do you have a particular opinion of Billy Mitchell? If I were just to ask you, one word that comes to mind when you think of Billy Mitchell is?
The world's longest thumb.
Okay, well, not so much. I guess thumb would be the one word. Thumb.
You know what? I've met Billy Mitchell before. He was a super nice guy. I get some of the stuff, and I'm not a big competitive gamer, so you guys know competition just brings out the worst and the best in some people. Same way with any kind of sport or anything. So we tend to shy away from some of that stuff, but at the same time, it's it's a little fun to talk about and to think about, but at the same time, who loses sleep over this?
Yeah,
Who cares?
Absolutely not. Let's see. YouTube Punk says his scores are part of the historical section on the website. The Razor Show says the scores aren't even records anymore. They've all been beaten. Let's see. Billy's still suing Carl Job. So yeah, apparently so. I think Billy was a big deal going into, like I said, the King of Kong, and kind of when that came out, I think he gained a lot of popularity from that. Like people started to know him a little bit more. I think some of us who were in the arcade. In the arcade, what do you call it, scene, we kind of already knew about him a little bit, but I think the King of Kong gave us a little bit more information than maybe what we had before. But I mean, he was the gamer of the century, is what Twin Galaxies called him at one point,
Something
or whatever
like that,
it is.
yeah.
I mean, but I kind of like Riggs' show said, all of his stuff has been beaten now.
Right.
So I mean, it's like
irrelevant.
Exactly, for sure. So, let's see, world's longest thumb. There you go. Let's see. Angelina says Billy Mullet King. That's what I think. There you go. That's a good one. It's all persona. This is delusional. Billy's a nice dude. He protects his interest and has his ego and status to look after. Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to. He's a fine guy. I mean I've talked to him on several occasions, and every time I talk with him, he just seems like a normal dude. And I mean he puts on a big show, when he needs to. So if he's like at an event or something like that, and they're doing a like a seminar or something like that, he's there, kind of in character, I would say. But otherwise, I mean, he's a good video game player. He's good.
Right.
Okay, and for a long time, he had records in a lot of stuff. But at this point, I don't know how much it really matters because a lot of those records have been broken.
I don't think about the Donkey Kong record. I just go way back to that perfect game of Pac-Man. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And, that's what I was just being silly about his thumb, because I remember I have a picture of me and him going like that, and his was like this much longer than mine. And but at the same time, I always think about Billy playing Pac-Man. That's where I go back. Not so much Donkey Kong and all that controversy. I just remember watching old news clips back in the day. This guy was just playing Pac-Man. It was just so crazy, and I thought, man, how can anybody? And I knew there were patterns and stuff you could memorize, but I just, it was just amazing to me at the time. And so I always had a lot of respect for that.
Absolutely. And he was really the first one, I guess, to officially record that he had a perfect game of Pac-Man. People have done it since, obviously, but I think when that happened, that was big news, and a lot of, local news stations picked that up. And that was even before, like you said, the King of Kong and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, he's a nice guy. If you talk to him, he's a very normal person, and he does have a nice little ego and character that he likes to put on, I think, when he's in certain places doing certain things. He's a very good video game player.
Does he still sell hot sauce?
I think he does. Yeah, Ricky's hot sauce. Yeah, it's good. So there you go. Okay, let's continue on here, Tim. Now, this I thought would be of particular interest to you.
Okay.
Being a former longtime Chuck E. Cheese employee. So, Chuck E. Cheese game show series in development with Magical Elves. Now, Tim, Magical Elves, you may not know that name, but they have created game shows such as Top Chef, Brain Games, Nailed It. Are you familiar with these shows? These are very common shows.
Some of those, yeah.
Brain Games, I'm very familiar with. Nailed It, of course, on Netflix, Tim, if you've seen those. So they're working on a show based on the Chuck E. Cheese arcade experience. The format will feature standalone comedic physical challenges where duos of big kids, aka adults, will compete over supersized arcade games, including pinball, air hockey, alley roller, which we know is skee ball, and the human claw. The top ticket earning duo will get a chance to exchange their tickets for prizes off the massive version of the iconic Chuck E. Cheese prize wall. Now, Tim, what do you think about this? Do you think this is actually going to be popular? Is this something you're going to watch?
It depends, I guess, on what format picks it up. If it was on Netflix or something, yeah, I'd probably watch it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't said, they're probably going to shop it around. I don't know who's going to pick it up.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Sounds fun. I would definitely like to see it.
I wonder what it would take to be a contestant.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at redemption games.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're a former Chuck E. Cheese employee. I think that you could get on the show.
I'm okay at skee ball.
Yeah, exactly. Okay at skee ball. I was about to say, he's really good at skee ball.
Yeah.
Just because he played
I'm not good at Donkey Kong or Galaga very, very good, but I can play some pretty good skee ball. So, and there definitely is a skill, just like pinball or any other game. So, I think it'd be an interesting show. Absolutely.
So, Tim, maybe if we can find out where they're filming and when they need people to be on the show, maybe we can get you signed up. I'm curious.
Maybe so.
There you go. So, hey, I mean, who wouldn't want to say former Chuck E. Cheese employee on there? You know,
right?
Like I'm just saying, you would be the favorite to win.
Right. I might just have to apply. That's pretty interesting.
For sure. So I think it's a really good idea. I don't know if Chuck E. Cheese is getting paid for this necessarily for licensing, because they didn't mention that, or if this is just kind of a promotion thing for them. But, Tim, I have been by our Chuck E. Cheese. I drive by it, fairly often, and I have definitely noticed waning in that. It's not nearly as busy as it used to be.
No, not quite as busy.
I'm sure birthday parties are still big and everything. Yeah, but like when I drive by on like an average weekend, I don't feel like it's as busy as it's been in the past.
Yeah, I was in there a couple days ago, and I would tell you what, I was pretty impressed though. They have redone the prize wall, and I was like, they got some new bins, new prizes. I was pretty impressed, and I was thinking, man, maybe it's time I took the nephews or something and went back to see some stuff. So I think they definitely have survived the COVID and everything else. So I think they're doing okay. Yeah. It's different.
I think it's okay. I don't know if they're where they were pre-COVID.
Well, what's happened is the cost of everything has gone so much. The sales are about what they were, but it's less people, people to get
same
there.
Revenue, right?
Yeah. So. And money's what makes the world go round. So
but your operating cost is also increased with that. So are they making the margin that they were making before? That's probably a bigger question. Yeah. I can imagine that revenue is the same. Margin may be different.
Yeah.
So anyway, coming over to the live chat, it looks like everybody's talking about high scores now. Raven Toe says, "Is Hank Chen still the King of Kong?" And I don't believe so, Tim. I think somebody else has taken that now.
It changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite often.
Let's see. Real Hammer Billy Lee says, I watch Billy Mitchell stream on Twitch a lot. So I guess he probably has a pretty good following there, I'd imagine. Let's see. Rexer Show says, the perfect Pac-Man is really hard. Grouping the ghosts to eat quickly is hard. Because you have to group them around, correct. Let's see. Robbie Lakeman is what Delusional says. He thinks he's the King of Kong now.
Okay.
So I'm not for sure. We'd have to look at Twin Galaxies. And Raventoe says the same thing about the perfect Pac-Man. No doubt if you are off by 1/10 of a second, it can throw off your pattern in Pac-Man completely.
That's what I'm saying. To me, that was always the most impressive thing he's ever done. Just in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just the skill that it takes, and you can't do it. It'd be almost impossible to do back-to-back ones. Okay. I mean, that's some good playing right there, and a lot of patience and stuff too.
So let's shift focus on the live chat. If you guys, what do you guys think about the Chuck E. Cheese game show? Yay or nay? Watch, not watch? Does it depend on the streaming service or the channel it's on? Would you want to go on and be a contestant? Let us know in the live chat. I want to hear it. And while they're discussing that, Tim, sad news in that an arcade closed. And, that's always kind of a sad thing. But, Tim, this is not just any arcade. This was Two Bit Circus. Are you familiar with Two Bit Circus? Excuse me. So Two Bit Circus was co-founded by Brent Bushnell, Nolan's son.
Okay.
And they only have 2 locations, or they did. They have the Los Angeles location and the Dallas location, but as we found out, thanks to the Dallas Morning News here, LA Bar's arcade Two Bit Circus closes in Dallas after only a year, Tim.
Interesting.
So Two Bit Circus, a micro amusement park featuring virtual reality and arcade games, has closed its Dallas location in the shops at Park Lane. The abrupt shutdown of the 35,000 square foot entertainment venue comes about a year after it opened. Dallas was only the second location for the Los Angeles entertainment business, which, like I mentioned, was co-founded in 2018 by Brent Bushnell, Nolan's son. Now, Tim, a Two Bit Circus is not much different than what you would think about a Dave & Buster's, maybe with a little bit more of almost like a carnival style theme, where you have some carnival games kind of mixed in with the arcade games. But Tim, the problem with Dallas is that, man, and I mean, I'm sure this is true in LA too, but the competition is fierce. I mean, you think about Dave & Buster's pretty much owns like the whole DFW area as far as locations are concerned. And then you have like the retro arcades like Free Play here that, I mean, are so popular. And there's more than just Free Play, obviously. There's Barcadia and some other ones. And so, Tim, I mean, the market is so crowded here. I just don't think that they were able to get the audience or the traffic that they needed in order to survive. But man, Tim, not even making it a year is pretty depressing.
Yeah, and we talked about it. I don't know what their food was like, how much they serve, but one thing about Dave & Buster's, I always go because I like their food too.
Yeah, their food is good.
So they do a lot of food sales and bar sales and stuff. So I don't know what their food was like, but to me, when we talked about this, just a standalone arcade is not going. You've got to really have something else. And to me, it would still be outdoor, go-kart, something. You can't just throw up a bunch of games and expect people to come just to play games.
I know they had a bar, but I don't know if they had how many
Quite
food
the
options.
foods. Not quite like Dave and Buster's.
Right.
In a 35,000 square foot, you should have a full-blown restaurant in that.
Right.
If anything, a high-end restaurant would be cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. I never went, so I couldn't really say.
Yeah, and me either, Tim. I know they had a bar, but I'm not sure about their other food options. But Dave & Buster's is a full-blown restaurant, Tim.
Yes.
People go to Dave & Buster's not just to play games, but to watch the games. Like
Right.
they used to say, play the games, watch the games, right? People go to Dave & Buster's just to drink and watch
football.
games.
Right.
That's all they do. They don't even play the games.
Right. There's been several times when I've been on vacation that was near Dave & Buster's and I wanted to see a sporting event or something. That's where I went. Because I could have some hot wings and that, and then I'd probably play a few games. But, I more or less went to watch a game and to eat.
Yep.
And I think that you have to have some kind of combination of everything like that to make it these days.
Absolutely, for sure. Just an arcade by itself is incredibly difficult. Unless you got a
Very.
really nice bar attached to it, a really nice restaurant, or some other attraction that you're trying to get in. So YouTube Punk says this too. I highly recommend the latest Free Play Arcade podcast. It's a candid discussion on how they barely survived the pandemic. And Tim, I'm a member in the Free Play group on Facebook with all the people who kind of own that. And Corey, the guy who's like the main managing partner that runs that place, he has been very, very transparent about everything that went on through the pandemic and all the stuff they had to deal with. I appreciate that so much. And I would love to get him on our show or an interviews podcast to talk with them about that. I'm glad they covered it on their podcast though, because the stuff that he was posting was amazing. Like the stuff they were having to deal with, especially during the pandemic and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was, golly, I really felt for those guys. And Tim, we ordered Free Play stuff. I think we have shirts and other stuff that we ordered during the pandemic as well to kind of support them.
Yes.
But Free Play is a fantastic set of arcades, and they're all over the DFW area. And they always use original hardware. You go there, you're getting an authentic arcade experience every time. There's no cheap multicades anywhere. They do a really good job with it. So by far my favorite arcade.
But that's
in
the draw,
DFW
is
area.
the
Right.
classic games.
Correct.
See,
It's a retro
this
arcade.
was not a retro arcade.
No.
This was just an arcade, which you got to compete with Dave & Buster's main event
Correct.
and everybody else. So what do you have that's going to compete with those?
Absolutely. So, and Tim,
Besides games.
that is a paywalled article, but of course it's the Dallas Morning News, Tim. So that's, we have a subscription to that, but it's very interesting. So, but I feel bad for him, Tim. I hate when arcades close, but the market is kind of crowded right now with a lot of these things. So you have to be able to distinguish yourself from everybody else for sure. Tim, we got a question from Ryan here. He's looking for a particular IC for a monitor that has horizontal collapse. He tried Bob Roberts. You might try arcadepartsandrepair.com and see if they have it. They carry a lot of those parts as well. If it's for a monitor, you can also try arcadecup.com. Chad a lot of times will carry some of those parts that are hard to get for monitors because he has to use them to replace the ones that on the chassis he's working on. So arcadepartsandrepair.com, arcadecup.com, those would be the other two that we would recommend. You may be able to, we used to use, what's the little cross-reference thing that we used to use? Tim, I can't think of the name of it at the moment. There's the NTE.
Yeah,
NTE has like a part cross-reference that if you plug in a part number from another manufacturer, it'll tell you what the NTE part number is for that. And I can't remember what the URL is for that right now, but if you can
Google that.
Yeah, if you Google NTE cross-reference, you'll probably find it. But they'll give you the NTE equivalent, and then a lot of times you can order that from one of their suppliers. So if there is one, sometimes there's not. So. Okay, Tim, moving on to our next one. And Tim, I really like the Tron movies, but just getting replies from everybody, I'm not sure if everybody's in the same boat as me. Like, I thought Legacy was really good. I liked the original. It came out when I was a kid, and so, I don't know. So I'm really keeping up with the Tron 3 news. Okay, and so I know some of you guys may not be so much, but Tim, when Tron 3 comes out, you and me are going to go see it.
All right.
Okay, because, Tron will always remind me of arcades.
For sure.
Well, always. Just because of the whole nature of the story and everything involving an arcade getting sucked in and all this kind of stuff. So, into that world. So, I am keeping up with all the Tron 3 news, Tim, and the latest news that we have is that it's finally in production.
Yay.
And this is from Gizmodo, Tim. So the director posted on Instagram that Tron Ares, or Tron 3, it wrapped its first week of production, so they've already done some filming, Tim. The original start date was mid-August 2023, but the Hollywood strike set things back. Tim, it was also announced that Gillian Anderson from X-Files and The Crown has also been added to the cast in an unknown role.
Interesting.
So we will be seeing her in some role in the film. The originally announced date for the movie, it was 2025. However, it is unclear if this will be changed based on the production delay. And Tim, of course, we had all of the Hollywood strikes, like it said, set things back. And I know that there was a lot of frustration in that, but I'm glad we're back on track. So I'm glad, and I hope that it comes out sooner rather than later. Tim, I imagine films like Tron, anything that takes a lot of CGI is probably going to take a lot of editing. Yeah. So I'm sure it's going to take them a while in post-production to get a lot of that stuff ironed out. But we are looking forward to seeing it very soon. I'm very excited about it. Hopefully, we'll once it comes out, maybe we'll do a thing. Yeah. I don't know. We'll do something. Good. So I'll rent a movie theater. We can do that. Rent a movie theater. So anyway, So Skelly is going to be in Tron 3. That is correct, Raventoe. So that is right. So if you're an X-Files fan, Tim, you watch the X-Files?
Oh, yeah.
There's a really good arcade episode. I don't know if you remember that one.
No, I don't.
Yeah, there's a really good arcade episode of the X-Files that you should check out.
That's weird. I don't remember it.
Yeah. And he said he liked Tron and Tron Legacy too. Tron Legacy was not great, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I think looking back now in the CGI, it looks worse than what it did then. Then it looked amazing, but now it's a little bit worse, but it's still good. I mean, I still like it. So, and Delusional, that's something I do need to know too. Cindy Morgan from the original Tron recently passed.
Yes.
So, just thoughts and prayers for her family. She will be missed because, man, I mean, the original Tron is iconic to me still. Mm-hmm. So, maybe one of the reasons I'm in the arcades as much as I am now. So,
same.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, well, I think we're through all of the news for this episode. Check that out. So, YouTube Punk says an arcade episode. Yes, there's an arcade episode of the X-Files.
I'm going to have to
I am telling people
myself.
Something they don't know. And Tim, I was not an avid X-Files watcher. I watched every so often, but I caught the arcade episode. I think it's a Virtua Fighter.
I would have thought that I've seen probably 80% of them, not all of them, so I'm surprised that I don't remember that.
Yeah, it has a Virtua Fighter in it. I forget what happens at the moment. I just remember watching it when I was a kid. And I didn't watch X-Files, but it was on Fox, and I watched something that came on before X-Files. It may have been The Simpsons. I was watching The Simpsons
caught your
or
attention,
whatever.
huh?
Yeah, exactly. And it's an arcade game, you know what I'm saying? So there is an arcade episode. I think it's with a Virtua Fighter. You guys look it up. Anyway, Tim, let's wrap this one up real quick. We do want to remind everybody that we want your arcade-related videos. If you want some free advertising for your YouTube channel, we're looking for people to submit short videos, 10 minutes or less, about arcade-related topics. You can send a link of your video to questions@arcaderepairtips.com, and our staff will review it. If we like it, we'll use it during one of our live show episodes. Make sure to put a plug in for your channel so we will know where to find you. We look forward to seeing your submissions. And Tim, that's always open to people who have arcade-related videos. It's just a way that we can hopefully help some of the smaller channels out there to get monetized, get a little bit more of an audience, so that way they can get to the monetization threshold that they need in order to do that. So. And then, Tim, we do want to remind everybody about our contact information. We have our email at questions@arcaderepairtips.com, questions@arcaderepairtips.com. If you put live show in the subject, we will save it for the show. Otherwise, we'll answer it whenever we get around to it. It may be on the show, maybe in an email reply, just depending. But that's the best way to get in touch with us, is questions@arcaderepairtips.com. And, Tim, before I move on, I do want to remind everybody one more time that if they would like one of these wonderful shirts that you have here, that they can send an email to questions@arcaderepairtips.com with their size, either extra large or 2XL. The number of shirts they want, between 1 and 3, and their mailing address. And we will send them back a quote for shipping and send them one of these shirts like this one that says, back in my day. There you go. So I will randomly pick shirts and you will get them. Again, shirts are free, shipping and handling you will have to pay for. Processing, all that kind of stuff. So. But if you want a free shirt, questions@arcaderepairtips.com. Extra large, 2XLs are what we have, and we'll ship you 1, 2, or 3, just depending, and you just have to pay shipping and handling. So let's move on.
Yeah.
Our YouTube page at youtube.arcaderepairtips.com. Of course, all of the wonderful people here in the live chat, or those of you who are watching this on YouTube, already know where to find our YouTube. But if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, then you may not. And if you want to find the after show for this episode, make sure you go to our YouTube page at youtube.arcaderepairtips.com. And we do try to cover comments from the last live show on the next episode. That's just, so if you want to leave a comment here on this show, we'll try to cover it on our next episode next month. So And then, Tim, we have our podcast feed that contains our live shows, our interview podcast, our questions and answer podcast, everything on it. And we have our iTunes page for that at itunes.arcaderepairtips.com. We have a Spotify page at spotify.arcaderepairtips.com. And we have an Audible page at audible.arcaderepairtips.com. Or you can find our audio feed wherever fine podcasts are aggregated, Tim. And we would appreciate if you would leave a 5-star review on any or all 3 of those different platforms, as that does help us get more exposure. And then, Tim, we have our social media pages, and we do want to thank Mark for all of his contribution to those. And you can find our social media at Facebook and Twitter, or X, whatever. Facebook.arcaderepairtips.com for our Facebook page, Facebook.arcaderepairtips.com. And for our Twitter/X feed, Twitter.arcaderepairtips.com will get you there, Twitter.arcaderepairtips.com. And so, just great stuff. If you guys want to follow us, we'd really appreciate that. We always update those if we have like live show changes, or if we're not going to do it on the first Thursday night of the month, or if you need a reminder to let you know when a live show is, or if you just want to talk about arcade news and things, make sure you follow us on our social media feeds, and you can find all our information there. So let's see what we got here. Let's see. Raventoe says, I want the shirts you guys are wearing. So I've got my I got a Star Wars shirt on tonight. So
got the one button.
There you go. And then you've got the one button to roll.
This one's
$100. Oh, $100?
Yeah. The others are free.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's up to you.
But
I'll sell it.
So much for giving people a shirt off your back.
Yeah, yeah. This one costs. This one's expensive.
I'll give you the other shirts off my back, but the one on my particular back right now, that one's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's for sale.
Yeah.
It's just expensive.
There you go. So,
but there's plenty like this, similar in that stack.
Agreed. So if you guys want 1, 2, or 3, just send an email to us and we'll ship them out. Tim, you got anything else here?
No.
Okay, so we're about to wrap up the regular show. If you guys have never stayed tuned with us, we have the after show that happens about 5 minutes after this show. And the only difference really is that in the after show, we discuss all topics. So mostly movies, sports, and TV shows. So if you want to stick around for that. Tim, do you have anything you want to talk about in particular? How about Super Bowl?
Yeah, we'll have our Super Bowl predictions. We'll take yours, see who can come closest.
And Tim, I watched something that I probably haven't watched in like at least a decade, maybe 15 years, and that was the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because my daughter's into wrestling now. And I will talk about the Royal Rumble and what I thought of that. And we'll be also talking about, I saw 3 movies, Tim, since the last time I saw you.
Okay.
The Marvels, Migration, and Wonka. And if you want to hear about what I think about all 3 of those, you can if you'll stay tuned. I also saw some TV shows, Tim. I know you did too. But we both saw a documentary on Netflix called American Nightmare, which we would highly recommend you watch. But if you want to hear our thoughts on it, make sure you stay tuned for the after show. Well, Tim, this will wrap it up for the regular part of the show. And we want to thank all of you guys for being here tonight. Hopefully you will stay for the after show here in about 5 minutes if you're watching this or if you're tuning in live. And we'll discuss all the topics you want. But if this is your exit ramp, we want to thank you for being here with us tonight. We will do our next show in March, first Thursday night of the month. And Tim, there are actually 5 Thursdays in February. Who would have thought?
Wow, that's crazy.
And it's because
29th.
Right, because the first falls on Thursday, and then the 29th falls on the Thursday.
Interesting.
So we actually have 5 weeks till the next live show. It'll be after Tim's birthday, but we'll still celebrate Tim's birthday then. So I will save my presents for you till then. So Tim's birthday show next month. And Tim, the April live show falls actually on my birthday.
Oh.
So, which is interesting. So we will be doing it then. But hopefully you guys will be back with us in March when we do our next live show. Remember, first Thursday night of every month. Most of the time. At 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We hope to see you back here then. So again, stay tuned for the after show. But if this is where you're exiting, we're glad you're here with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next month. And remember, here at Arcade Repair Tips, when you fix the game,
you play the game.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the after show, or we'll see you in March for the next live show. Take care, guys.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Arcade Repair Tips live show. All of our past episodes are available on our website at arcaderepairtips.com or on our YouTube page. This show is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please consult a professional before attempting to repair any coin-operated machines yourself. The preceding program is a Varcade Entertainment production.
And we're back for the after show of episode 84. We hope you guys enjoyed the regular live show. This is the after show part of the show, Tim, so technically we talk about everything here, but you can also give arcade questions. We'll continue to answer those in the live chat or wherever. And there was one from Jumping General about an Area 51 Site 4 with board issues. He said, do you recommend changing the hard drive over to the SD card? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, those hard drives, it's probably one of the number one things that go wrong is a hard drive failure. And so especially if it's having problems loading like game sprites or stuff like that, definitely recommend changing it out to the SD card. So for sure. And Delusional said the same thing. So yeah, I mean, but it does also depend on what the issue is. So I mean, if it's having trouble, like I said, loading up sprites, or if it's giving you a particular error that has to do with the hard drive, definitely want to change it over. Not saying it'll solve your issue completely. Maybe that's the better way to say it, right, Tim? But anyway. Okay, Tim, well, let's, I'm going to skip some of the ancillary talk. I do want to talk about, did you do anything special in January?
Worked a lot. We had 2 snow days.
Yes.
And your boss is probably like mine.
I went in on Monday.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. Now, I only worked part of the day, but when I went home, I was slipping and sliding around a little bit.
Well, 2 things. One, our getting out of our neighborhood has a big hill. Mm-hmm. And I told my boss I don't know if I can make it, but even if I could get out, all my restaurants were closed.
Right.
So I couldn't do any assessments when the restaurants were closed. So my boss, of course, was like, well, stay home, take off. Yay, snow day. But guess what happens? The amount of work I still have to do a month doesn't change. So
right.
I had to work some Saturdays, and it was like really tough to work some long days to make up those times. So it was nice having the snow days, but then I did work a lot on the days that I had to work, so to really make up for it.
I was off Tuesday, though. The Tuesday after the Monday where we had the snow day. Monday, I went in. In the morning, it wasn't bad because it was just snow. But by the afternoon, the snow had kind of melted and refroze, so it was kind of icy. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of slipping and sliding around in my Jeep that I have, but made it home no problem, and we were good. So, I mean, and then Tuesday, it was really icy, so we didn't bother with it. So, but the biggest thing I got to do in January is I did get to see the World Series trophy that the Texas Rangers, I think I talked last time that I had scheduled it.
Yes.
But I had not actually gone. I did get to see it. I got to play catch on the field with my good friend Brian. And so we actually, like, as part of the tour, you get to throw the ball on the field.
How fun.
So, yeah, I threw the ball on the field with my friend Brian and his daughter, and we had a good time. And I got to see the trophy.
How cool was that?
I should have, if I would have been smart, I would have
loaded the
picture, and I didn't. I sent it to Tim because I think when I was there, I sent it to you.
Well, we do like to mention that the Texas Rangers are the World Series champions.
And I had to see the trophy just because I wanted to see for myself that.
But they're definitely the only Texas team that's going to even come close this year. I think we're so disappointed in the Cowboys. And you know what? The Houston Texans really made a good run.
I tell you what, yeah, they did.
And they're pretty interesting. Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year. Some really good things happening down in Houston.
Let's see if the camera will adjust. We'll see if it'll adjust there. That's me with the trophy. It's kind of hard to see. I don't think it'll adjust properly. But anyway, that was me at the trophy. So I got to see it, Tim. It's real. It's a real trophy. I can promise you. It actually happened.
Can't take it back.
Yeah, exactly. So it was neat, though, as a lifelong Rangers fan, Tim. It was amazing. So, yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe it really I still can't believe it really happened. So it's crazy. But anyway, so that's about the only thing I did, I guess, in January. My cousin came in from Arkansas for a little bit and visited, which was nice. And I mean, other than that, and my son had a birthday yesterday. Is the last day in January. Oh, okay. So he had his birthday yesterday. He's 6.
Wow, that's incredible.
Remember when we delayed the live show? We recorded the live show early so he could be born, and here we are still doing the live show after all this time. So Tim, he shares a birthday with somebody you may know, who I've got a lot of pictures of up here.
Oh, Nolan Ryan.
Yeah, so my son actually shares a day with Nolan Ryan. Obviously not the year, Tim, but Nolan Ryan. Happy birthday, Nolan Ryan! Happy birthday to my son.
Anybody that you know on your birthday?
I have Robert Downey Jr.
Uh-huh.
Is probably the most famous person.
Emmett Smith.
Oh, my dad, Michael Jordan.
Okay.
February 17th. So, so we have some, we share some birthdays with some famous people. If you have a birthday that you share with somebody famous, let me know. I'm curious. But that's about how my January went. Let's talk Super Bowl.
Right.
Or do you want to talk about disappointing Cowboys? Or you just want
we can skip that part. Nobody cares about them or wants to relive
San Francisco Giants versus Kansas City.
49ers.
49ers, excuse me. San Francisco 49ers, sorry. See, I've got baseball in the mind already. All right. Giants, see San Francisco.
Right.
But San Francisco
Against
49ers.
Against the Kansas City Swifties, right?
Yes, exactly.
I mean Chiefs.
Chiefs,
Right?
yes. So, you see, I'm ready for baseball season. Football. So, obviously, Tim, I think we mentioned this before. I graduated from the same high school that Patrick Mahomes graduated from. So, like, Kansas City Chiefs fans are all over this place. And obviously, Tim, we're going to be pulling for the Kansas City Chiefs. And don't like the 49ers anyway. They kind of were rough with us, the Cowboys, you know? I mean, they were the best team in the NFC, but, you know, we had a lot of trouble with them. So, but I'm pulling for the Chiefs, obviously. But, Tim, are you excited about this matchup at all?
Not much.
Yeah,
it's just not that I won't watch, and not that I probably. You ever it's one of those games where you just kind of once you're seeing it, you kind of get into it. It's probably how I'll be, but yeah, you know, and I just would not. I would not throw money against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, but definitely on paper, I think San Francisco's a good team, and both teams deserve to be. I think the two
San
best
Francisco
teams kind of.
San Francisco could have really lost that game against the Lions.
They could have.
I mean, golly, that was...
Well, you know, when you're behind
Dan
21
freaking
to 7,
Campbell.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Can't kick a field goal, Campbell.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or won't kick a field goal, Campbell.
Yeah. I was kind of rooting for the Lions, just because.
I was definitely rooting for the Lions.
Yeah, exactly.
And now if the Lions were in there, I would definitely be really more excited about the game. Yeah. I would, but I just, I watched that game, and I'm like, I'm not a Detroit diehard fan, just kind of a fan of this team and their struggle, and you kind of the underdogs, you like to see them. But man, I would be frustrated if I was one of their fans, because
okay, now we're getting some people who share birthdays with famous people. So the real Hammer Billy Lee says he shares a birthday with Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, which was a wrestler. Tim, are you familiar with Mr. Perfect?
Know Mr. Perfect,
and also Lady Gaga.
Okay,
so there you go. Text JYT says he shares a birthday with Cameron Diaz.
Okay,
so there you go. We all share birthdays with famous people.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Everybody has a birthday, right?
Right.
And so, you know, I'm not really excited about the Super Bowl, you know, but I'll watch it.
Yeah.
What else you going to do?
What else am I going to watch?
I'll miss football. But then, you know, we got the UFL coming right up, and maybe we'll go see a game.
I want to go to a game.
I think it'll be fun.
I'm all about the fighting Stoopses.
Right.
The Arlington Renegades.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool that they're doing kind of like an XFL versus USFL thing. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
So when they unified the two leagues, half the teams are USFL and half the teams are XFL.
Right.
And so the champions, both the champions from each league, they retained.
The first game,
That's the first game, right? And the XFL people who were drafted in the XFL last season have to play on XFL teams, and same for USFL teams.
Right.
So it really is kind of like two leagues against each other, which I think is pretty.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat concept.
I like seeing guys who are just out there giving it their all. I feel like NFL players a lot of times, I feel like sometimes they're out there giving it their all, sometimes they're not. But the thing about the XFL guys is like they're trying to play their way into the NFL.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like second chance opportunity for them. I like that because I feel like it puts more on them. And you've already seen a lot of guys get picked up from the USFL.
Look at the
XFL.
Cowboys kicker.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great example.
Right.
You know, goes from IT 2 years ago to USFL kicker to now rookie
kicker
of the year, wasn't he?
Exactly.
I think so.
So I love stories like that. And so, like, that's what I like about the USFL, XFL stuff. And so I'm definitely going to watch Tim. Maybe we can go to a game, for sure. Any other sports stuff you want to talk about here, Tim? Oh, Royal Rumble. Speaking of Kurt Hennig. So my daughter, Tim, she got an action figure she kind of won in, like, a contest.
Okay.
And it was a WWE action figure for AJ Styles.
Okay.
Which AJ Styles has been wrestling since I've been watching. Now, he looks a lot different than he used to. Tim, he is 46 years old.
Okay. Still wrestling.
Still wrestling, yes. But she decided when she got this figure that she wanted to see some matches with AJ. So I pulled some up on YouTube. We watched some. And then I told her, I'm like, you realize AJ's still wrestling, right? Like, he still does the live shows. And she's like, what? It's live? So we started watching WWE SmackDown. And so every week, Friday night, we watch SmackDown. And and me and my wife has even gotten into it a little bit. And so we all watched the Royal Rumble together. And AJ had a match in there. It was a fatal 4-way. He ended up losing. Roman Reigns ended up winning. Big surprise. But to be honest with you, it was fun. And it was probably the first time in a long time where I took in a wrestling show, was actually kind of invested in it, and enjoyed it. Okay. So, I mean, I will say I think they're making a comeback.
Yeah.
I remember there were some lean years there where I tried to watch and just could never get into it. But now it seems like you've got a lot of these wrestlers. The long timers are kind of like AJ are kind of starting to phase themselves out. But I think we're going to see some changeovers and some titles and things. And Tim, of course, the big news about Vince McMahon getting kicked to the curb in the lawsuit.
Yes.
And of course TKO with the big contract with Netflix. TKO is the holding company that owns UFC and WWE now. But of course the lawsuit with Vince McMahon, where basically one of his, I think it was assistants or somebody who worked for the WWE. Have you read the text messages?
No.
Don't.
Okay, don't.
Just don't. But it's awful. And it looks like it's all true.
Yes.
So I don't know if we'll ever see Vince McMahon in the WWE any longer. But I will say I do think the storylines are heading in good directions. And I'm excited for WrestleMania. I'll say it. So, and look, guys, everybody who watches wrestling knows it's choreographed. And knows that all the outcomes are predetermined. Okay? You don't have to tell people it's fake. Right. I hate when people say wrestling's fake or whatever. It's no different than watching any other TV show.
Right.
Every other TV show you watch is scripted, except for reality shows, and even they are scripted sometimes, right? And so every other show you watch is scripted. Wrestling's no different. It's just got people who use their real names instead of like sometimes fake names or whatever it is. Same kind of thing. So, but you don't, you know how it is. Anyway, Alan says, my kids and I got to meet AJ Styles. He was extremely nice. That doesn't surprise me one bit. He seems like a really nice guy. Tim, he's got AJ tattooed on his side with his kids' birthdays on there, which is pretty awesome. He just seems like a very stand-up gentleman. So,
well, what's funny is after watching the Iron Claw, which I highly recommend.
I still want to see this. I know you told me I'm going to watch.
You need to watch it. Well, you can watch it with your daughter, except for maybe a couple scenes you might be sensitive because if you know their story, it's all tragic. Yeah. It's a sad movie. But at the same time, I think she really liked the wrestling and stuff. But that has really prompted me to go to YouTube, like you said. And I'm watching these old Junkyard Dog versus Kamala, Kabuki, and fighting this guy, and Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair. There's so many matches on there, and I'm just sitting there watching them like it was live from like I was sitting there watching it
from
live.
From the Sportatorium.
Yeah, and they're so fun to watch. Yeah. I just enjoyed it.
Well, there's still some Von Erichs wrestling.
Yeah.
In fact, when AEW was in Texas last time, they had two of the Von Erichs that came down with Kevin.
Right.
And actually wrestled. So, I mean, they're still part of their family that's still wrestling. So, is it Kevin that's still alive? He's the one, right?
Yeah, Kevin is sons, right?
Yes.
They're both of them
it's Kevin's sons, or grandsons even, maybe at this point. I can't remember
grandsons,
yeah. Because they looked young. They may be grandchildren.
Yeah.
And Kevin looks old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if his grandsons at this point. Alan said he went to WrestleMania. That's awesome. So, you think of WrestleMania as like the Super Bowl for wrestling. You know what I'm saying? And I look for, I try to watch it, at least watch a little bit of it every year. I don't always get through all of it. And like I said, sometimes the storylines are lost on me. But now since I've watched the Royal Rumble, I'm kind of caught up on storylines, Tim, because we're on the road to WrestleMania. What is it, like 70-something days or whatever it is till April when it happens. So, anyway, it's fun. It's fun to watch. I like it. So, and my daughter is liking it too, so we're having a good time. Tim, how about just tell us whatever TV shows and movies you've been watching. We're gonna have to cut this a little shorter than usual. I should say that just because I've got to go pick up my son. I've got somebody watching him, so we're probably cut out of here about 7:30 or a little bit after. So yeah, but TV shows, movies. Tim.
Well, there's if those of you that have watched this, my wife and I, we try to pick a show that we will both like.
Sure.
And so we have landed on This Is Us since it came on to Netflix, and I'd seen some shows before and I liked it, so we're gotten to watch it. Now we talked about this earlier, I'm invested in it because we're into season 3 and there's 6 seasons. They're long shows, long seasons, so if you need a show you can watch with your wife or something. The only problem is, we talked about, they're so sad. It's like I can't cry every episode, and you know what's going to happen, but it's just a drama show. But I like it. It's fun. We watch it. I finished up The Man in the High Castle, which we talked about last time. But since this is the only show we're watching, we watch 1 or 2 episodes a night, and we're only on season 3 in a whole month. So that'll tell you how long it is. But and we'll talk about it in a minute. Tell us about the shows you've been watching. We'll talk about the one we have seen together.
Right. We mentioned it at the end of the regular live show, but that's American Nightmare. We'll get to that here in a second. Tim, I mentioned The Marvels, Migration, and Wonka. So let's talk about real quick. Delusional says, I can't confirm or deny I work behind the scenes airing WWE Weekly. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Delusional, I didn't realize. Very interesting. So, but I will say I'm getting back into it. So good job. Anyway. That's kind of TV talk too, in a way. Let's talk about the 3 movies, though. Okay, so Tim, the Marvels. Are you familiar with the Marvels?
Yes.
This is MCU. So this is Captain Marvel was the first one, right? And this is kind of the sequel to this. And this features Monica Rambeau, who was in WandaVision.
Right.
So if you watch WandaVision, you know how she got her powers. And then the other one was from Miss Marvel, which was another TV show on Disney+.
Yes.
So we bring these 3 characters together in the Marvels, and it's a good movie. And it's funny. And it's got Samuel Jackson in it, of course, as Nick Fury.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would have gone to the movie theater to see it, though. And I think that was the big problem, was that they just couldn't get enough turnout for it.
But worth a watch.
But worth watching. Yeah, I mean, it was good. Even if you didn't know a whole lot about the MCU, if you just had maybe a passing phase where you watch some of the movies, I think you would still enjoy it. Because it's definitely funny. It's got some really crazy parts, and the action scenes are well done.
Is it on pay-per-view? Or
It is. It's on demand. Right now.
Okay.
But it will be coming to Disney Plus, I think, end of this month, beginning of next month.
Okay.
So if you wait a little bit longer, you'll get to see it. Tim, let's talk about Migration. This was from Illumination, the people who do Minions and everything else. So I saw the previews for this, and the previews did it no justice. Because I really didn't have an idea of what it was about. It just looked like a movie where they were showing a lot of nice scenery with ducks.
Yeah, okay.
What Migration is, it could be renamed Family Vacation with Ducks.
Okay.
That's what it could be named. I think that would be more aptly named. So, think National Lampoon's Vacation with Ducks.
Okay.
And it's funny.
You took the kids,
well, we all watched it together on
Okay,
demand.
on
Didn't
demand.
watch it. And they enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And it's really funny.
Yeah.
And we like Illumination stuff anyway. We love Minions.
sure.
We like all the stuff that they usually put out. We're big fans of.
And there's usually some adult humor in there that kids won't catch, but adults will, but it's not risque or nothing, just funny.
This one has a lot more adult humor in it than most, because it's about a family vacation.
Right.
So there's a lot of that stuff where if you're a parent,
and some of the scenes I saw look funny.
Yes.
I was like, this is looks pretty funny.
Yeah, so if it ever comes to a streaming platform where you can watch it, I highly recommend it. And speaking of Illumination movies, I'm looking forward to Despicable Me 4, Tim, which comes out this summer. So, okay, Wonka. So, Migration and Marvel's thumbs up. If we're just doing, I like thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay.
It's easy. I'd recommend both those because they're very decent movies, and you'll have a good time watching them. They're not the best movies in the world, but they're enjoyable and entertaining. Let's talk about Wonka for a second.
Okay.
Tim, I'm a huge Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory fan with Gene Wilder and all that kind of stuff. I love that movie so much. This movie is a prequel to that movie and even features some of the same music.
Okay.
Okay. But I think it hurts the movie because I love the original so much, and this Wonka is too happy.
Okay.
The thing I think about when I think about Willy Wonka and Gene Wilder was this off-balanced approach, right? Like, you never really knew, is he lying? Is he telling the truth?
He's kind of a smart aleck.
Right. Is he kind of smart aleck
he's
kind
like,
of thing? So in this, Timothy Chalamet plays him ultra positive, which I've never seen Wonka ultra positive. It's kind of odd. I kind of feel like he needs to be a little off-putting and a little offset. And even the way Johnny Depp kind of did Wonka, it's kind of that same way.
I agree.
And I understand you're playing an earlier version of the same character, but I still need a little bit of that kind of off-kilter feel. Okay. And I didn't get that. And so I think that's why it's super, super upbeat. It has some dark parts in it, so it's mainly for older kids. I'd say, 10 plus for sure. Maybe even older, 12 plus. Because it's got some darker parts in it. It is very entertaining. I think if you wouldn't have called it Wonka, I would have rated it higher. Oh. But because I'm comparing the first one to this one,
if it would have been called How Charlie Got a Chocolate Factory, or
if you just would have if you would have called it Conk the Chocolate Man, or whatever, I'm saying, like the Chocolatier or something, then it would have been different. But when you're trying to compare something so iconic and then you come with a prequel to something so iconic, it's very hard. It's easier to do a sequel than a prequel in that case. I believe it. So like Tron, we talked about Tron. Tron Legacy is a good sequel, right? It's not a prequel; it's a sequel. And I think when you have this big gap between like the original and the first, it's easier to do sequel than it is to do prequel. Now, in Willy Wonka's case, that may not be the case because it's a little bit different story. But as far as making the storytelling make sense, I think it's easier to do the sequel rather than the prequel. And so here, it's a good movie, but I do think that it suffers from being associated with such an iconic movie.
I can see that.
It's worth watching again. I would give it a thumbs up. It's worth watching. But here's the thing. These three, I would say, don't go out of your way to see them. Don't do the on-demand thing like I did.
Okay.
Wait till they come to the streaming service that you own and watch them. Okay. Right? So, like, if you have Disney Plus, when the Marvels comes on Disney Plus, go see it. Migration, if they probably Peacock or whatever, if it comes on Peacock, watch it. If Wonka comes to Netflix, watch it. Okay? But don't go out of your way to spend money on any of these. So, before we move on, Tim, Brandon, is recapping a screen just replacing old capacitors with new ones on the board? I have had bad wobbly screen and have adjusted everything that I can think of. Yes, so when we talk about recapping, that's exactly what we're talking about. Taking the old capacitors off the chassis and replacing it with new ones. This can help with things like a wobbly screen, but it depends on how your screen is wobbling, if that makes sense. So if you want to take a picture of whatever your screen looks like, along with a picture of your chassis, and send those to questions at arcaderepairtips.com, we can give you probably better advice on how to solve whatever problem it is. But a cap kit is always a good place to start, right, Tim?
Sure.
So if you want just a place to start, a cap kit is a good place to do that. So, Tim, let's talk about Echo real quick, which was the latest Marvel TV show on Disney Plus. It was really good. So I'm a big fan of the Marvel Netflix shows.
Yeah.
So that's Daredevil, Jessica Jones,
Flash.
Iron Fist, not Flash,
No, Flash.
Iron Fist, and Luke Cage.
Yes.
Those 4, the Defenders.
Yes.
Okay. So if you like those, you'll love Echo, because
Okay.
Echo is in that same vein. It is for mature audiences. It does not hold back on the violence, just like those 4 shows did not.
Okay.
And so if you like that, you'll like it. Tim, Kingpin is kind of the bad guy in this, and Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays the Kingpin, is so freaking good. Like, it's worth watching any of these Marvel shows where he's in it just for him. He was in Hawkeye, he was in Daredevil, he was in not Jessica Jones. He's been in a lot of them. When he plays the Kingpin exactly like I think the Kingpin is. As somebody who read comics for almost my entire life, that is the Kingpin when I see him.
Okay.
He plays that role perfectly. And if you've seen him in Jurassic World, he plays like a goofy, like, raptor guy who wants to stick raptors on everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, but such a change between Kingpin and that character.
Okay.
Okay, he is the best Kingpin ever, as far as acting goes. I can't think of anybody else I could even picture in that role. And so I hope at some point he gets an on-screen debut as Kingpin. He deserves it. But anyway, so if you like those Defender shows, Netflix, Marvel stuff, you'll like Echo. It's good. Tim, let's talk about a lost sitcom that I just ended up watching out of the blue.
Okay. Yeah, this was interesting when we were talking about it. I didn't even know it existed.
Exactly, me neither. So I'm on a Frasier group. Tim, Frasier is one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen Cheers, I've seen Frasier, and I've seen Wings. Those are all made by the same people, and I love all those shows. So on the Frasier group, somebody says, hey, have you ever seen this? And it was a show called Back to You. It aired on Fox, and it featured Kelsey Grammer, who everybody knows as Frasier, but it also featured Patricia Heaton, who, as you probably heard us talk about, was on Everyone Loves Raymond and The Middle, which are 2 shows that me and Tim really like. And it also has Josh Gad, who's probably best known now for being Olaf the Snowman, but, is a pretty decent actor too. And it has Fred Willard and the other guy from Modern Family. It was made by the creators of Modern Family. It takes place in a newsroom. Kelsey Grammer and Patricia Heaton are the 2 main anchors. And it's really good. And it's only 17 episodes. And I think the reason it didn't get renewed was because it got split over a writer's strike. So half the episodes were filmed and ready to go. And then they had a writer's strike. And then it came back after the writer's strike. And I think it struggled. And so after 17 episodes, it's over. But those 17 episodes are really good.
Comedy?
And you can see, yes, funny. Comedy. It's a sitcom. Comedy.
Drama? Or
you can see the beginnings, and this is done by the same people who did Modern Family. The same producers and creators. And you can see, and I haven't watched enough of Modern Family to know for sure, but you definitely can see some of the humor in Back to You that gets used later in Modern Family.
I see.
Some of the same characters and everything. So it's very interesting, and now, Tim, it makes me want to watch Modern Family.
Okay.
So I think that's where I'm heading next. So anyway, but here's the thing about Back to You. I had to buy the DVD.
Oh.
And rip it to my media server.
Oh, okay.
So, but if you want the DVD, I'll loan you the DVD because I've already got it ripped. So you can have the DVD version. It was only $8. It's not like it cost me a whole lot. But do you have a DVD player still?
I think so.
I was going to say, it would be the bigger question.
It still works.
So yeah. But Back to You.
I still have a
If you can
VCR
find
somewhere.
a copy of it, you can buy it online. I think And then you can buy the complete season on Prime Video or something.
Okay.
But I have the DVDs if you want to watch it. And it was really good. So, and I'm going to be watching Modern Family now. I think that's the next one I'm going to watch going forward.
Interesting.
Okay, let's talk about the last one on the list here, Tim. That is American Nightmare. Now, Tim, I didn't know anything going in.
Okay.
But I had heard this story.
I just told you it was to watch it.
Yeah, you just told me to watch it. Tim said, I watched it. You need to watch it too. So, why don't you explain it, since you probably have a better grasp of it. I just watched it last night.
Yeah.
And I'm still about 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes left. So
You'll have to, I'm having a choking minute here for a second.
I can maybe take over then.
Tell the story. What happened?
Okay, so where does this take place? California somewhere.
California. Yeah.
California. I forget the
Southern California somewhere.
Southern California. So
Guy goes to the police station
Yes.
and tells the police this.
Yes. So he says, my girlfriend has been kidnapped. And they're like, well, why didn't you call this in? He's like, because I was bound up and sedated, basically. And I got loose and I called. And so basically what he claims is there's a story about somebody breaking into his house, shining a light right at him and his girlfriend, putting these goggles over their eyes to where they can't see. They're blacked out goggles. And then giving them sedatives. And then him taking the girlfriend and leaving the boyfriend there, just basically, and telling him, I'm going to be watching you. Don't move.
Yeah,
don't
if you
do
call
anything.
the cops, I got cameras in here or something. I'm going to watch you, and we'll hurt her or something.
Right. And so,
And they're basically for ransom.
right. And so the first episode is about the boyfriend, and it tells his side of the story. And obviously, Tim and the cops don't believe him, which
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe him either.
No, it sounds crazy.
But the thing is that the more he tells the story, the more he gets every detail exactly correct. So you start to believe him.
But it sounds crazy because he said they were wearing wetsuits.
Yep, wetsuits.
Yeah, think about some of the details. That they gave them goggles, but they were wearing wetsuits.
And they put earmuffs on, and they were playing soothing music.
Yes.
So headphones and soothing music. And like wind chimes.
Yeah, it sounds like the most crazy made-up story ever.
And so he goes to the police station, and at first they're listening to him, and then they start kind of antagonizing him.
Right.
And finally he says, I want my lawyer, which he should have said from the beginning, right?
Right.
And so the very first episode is his side of the story. Well, guess what? Girlfriend shows up. Just
Right.
out of the blue. And then you get to hear, second episode, her side of the story. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then third episode, you get to hear about the others.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil anything.
No, don't spoil it.
Boyfriend side, girlfriend side, others.
Yes.
Okay? And that's all we're going to tell you, because I think if you go in blind, you're going to like it a lot more.
Yeah.
Tim, this was endlessly fascinating.
It was. I'm telling you, it's just one of those shows where, and it's one of those where you're like,
I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah,
Now.
it definitely teases your brain, and the fact when she just walks up one day, and so you don't know. I mean, you can imagine her poor family. Is she dead? Is she alive? Did he make this up? Did he kill her and dispose of her body? What happened? And that's what you'll find out if you watch it. It's American Nightmare. It's on Netflix.
And
it's only 3 episodes.
Right.
You watched all 3 last night, right?
I did. They're 45 minutes each.
So it's not a long.
No, it's like watching a movie.
Yeah, you can binge it really quick. Just highly recommend, though. Crazy ending.
Yes. Highly recommend watching it, too. It was very fascinating. True story, obviously.
Very true story.
But, man, just...
If you remember the news, they called her the Gone Girl.
Yes.
And if you've seen the movie Gone Girl, which we have not...
I have not, but...
It's very similar to the movie. In fact, that's one of the things that the police thought is that they accused him of watching this movie and creating just to try to get some attention.
And can I just say something real quick about law enforcement?
Yeah.
Golly, I know they have a tough job.
Yes.
Okay, but law enforcement failed on many levels in this story. Unfortunately.
But they also came through.
They also came through. I should say that.
The lady cop.
Right.
And so it shows both the worst side of law enforcement and also some of the best side.
That is true.
And I will say this, that, it's nice to know that there are some really good cops out there, too.
Okay,
and that comes through, especially at the very end.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That is true. I forgot about that, Tim. And here's the thing, though. It's like every police department is different, and that's something you have to keep in mind, too. I mean, because the lady that was the good cop was from a totally different police department than the rest of them.
Well, I've always had a problem when a person goes missing. What's the first thing the cops say? How long has it been?
Right.
Because it's like, they probably just... Who we ought to treat... Let that be the great news.
Right.
you ought to treat, if the person says they've been gone 15 minutes, the cop should be all over it right then, in my opinion, and treating it that serious, because people know. You know when your wife's supposed to be home. You know her habits. You know how she calls. You know how she checks in. You know when you feel it when something's wrong. So there should not be a waiting period. If you waste their time, let them, you can donate to the policeman's ball or something on their behalf. And I get it. There probably would be some of those. But too many cases, by the time they really take it serious and get involved, something bad has already happened.
Agreed.
My soapbox.
But I mean, golly, they have such a tough job. I mean, I understand that. And so, I totally get, accusing people of being wasteful of their time. I totally get that. There are cases where that's the case.
People go missing, and it takes too long to ever get started.
Right. It's true. So, and that's the case in this one, too. So, American Nightmare, Netflix. That's it. That is it, Delusional. You got it. So, if you guys want to watch that and get back with us, either questions at arcaderepairtips.com or in the comment section below, let us know what you think.
Great one to watch with your significant other or friends. It will be very thought-provoking, and it was almost fun. We were almost playing a game of who's telling the truth.
Yep.
Who do you believe? What do you believe? My wife's like, there's no way, blah, blah, blah. We're both almost, not arguing, but we're having a genuine discussion. Like, I'm leaning this way, and she's leaning that way. She's like, there's no way. And I'm like, there is a way, and blah, blah, blah. It's fun. It's a fun show to watch.
But, I mean, it is also very disturbing.
Plays with your mind.
It's very disturbing, too. It's true crime. So, I mean, it's got, it'll tell you all of the stuff. It is definitely for mature audiences only. Don't watch this with somebody below the age of 18 for sure.
Right.
So, okay.
If it's true.
Yeah. And we're done. That's everything. I got 2 minutes. You got anything to talk about in 2 minutes?
No, we just want to thank everybody. We
still got shirts.
A really great live show. I know somebody said that they had emailed in, so thank y'all for that. Realistically, I didn't know what to do with them, and I thought, they're just too good, and so they are gently used. They're loved, but they are. They are washed. They are clean. They're ready to wear. You might still want to wash them when you get them. Some people are like that.
Yeah, I see several shirt requests.
But I guarantee you, several of those I've only worn once or twice. You guys seen? I have so many, Johnson. You've seen. If you're a fan of the live show for over 10 years, you'll know why I have a big collection of those. And those are the ones I just can't wear anymore. I still have a bunch that are mine, and I still wear them. And that's why they're expensive. But
so, I mean,
I think we just thought it would be fun. Instead of just, giving them to Goodwill, thought maybe some of you guys, and hopefully you'll get a shirt.
Yeah, I'm going to try to send out, what you request. But, I mean, at the same time, I also want to spread out. So if we get a lot of requests, if you ask for 3, I may only give you 2 just because, I want to spread out, make sure everybody gets at least some. But at the same time, I want to give them all out, too. So we'll just kind of work from there.
And let us know when you get the shirt. Send us a picture or something.
Yeah,
we'd love to show and show off, or wear it to wherever, or sleep in it, target practice with it. We don't care. We just thought it would be something different and fun. It's actually Jonathan's idea. I was going to see if he wanted any of them, and then I thought, well, I hated to just, I can't keep them.
Right.
It's like I'm trying to get in this mode where, what's those? Have you ever seen that show? Does it bring you joy?
Yeah.
It's like, but I have to get to where I just downsize some stuff because I'm a hoarder.
Yeah,
I collect too much stuff.
Yeah, it is true. Okay, well, everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for holding on through the after show. Hopefully you learned some stuff or had fun just hanging out with us. And we look forward to seeing you in March. And 5 weeks, Tim. Hard to believe with a February, but a February
so plenty of time to get your questions in. That's or whatever you're working on. Just want to reiterate, a lot of times when you include pictures and stuff, that helps so much and helps us to help you troubleshoot a little better. It's not a requirement, but it does help.
Absolutely. So we'll see you in March, guys. Y'all have a good time. It'll be after Tim's birthday, but we're still going to celebrate it at the next live show. So, Tim, early happy birthday.
Thank you.
And we'll celebrate next time. See you guys then. Take care. Night. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.